Test, test, test.
Can you hear us?
Yes, I can.
Okay.
We'll call the meeting to order in about a minute. Just doing a quick audio test because here in the room, there's a slight echo.
Testing.
Testing 1, 2, 3. Yeah, we're just going to make sure our remote participants can hear us.
I can.
Can hear you loud and clear.
Cool. I think, let's see, we got the echo still? Oh. Yes. All right. As long as everyone online can hear me clearly, I think we're ready to go. All right. Hearing none, I think that's a thumbs up for approval. So we'll go ahead and call the Q3 2024 Wyoming Workforce Development Council meeting to order. And first of all, welcome to Fort Washakie. It's my first time here, and hopefully you all seems like had a safe journey up this way. And looking at what we have on the agenda, we've got a lot of really cool talking points, a lot of discussions that are going to be happening. So I'm really looking forward to all of it, as well as our site visit that we're going to be doing later after this first half of the council meeting before we recess. So but what I would like to do just really quickly is just a really quick round of introductions. Just what is your name? What is your role on the council? And what do you do? And like, where are you from? So I'll go ahead and kick it off. And that way, because we all know we have, I think, 5 new council members that are joining for their first time. So for those new folks, would you mind raising your hands? Hi, welcome. Welcome to the Wyoming Workforce Development Council. So excited to get to know you, learn more about you. So I'll kick it off and I'll hand it over this way. But my name is Eric Trowbridge, but everyone just calls me by my initials ET. I am the chairman of the Wyoming Workforce Development Council. I am the director of enterprise applications and development for Blue Federal Credit Union, and I am based out of Cheyenne.
Good afternoon, everyone. I am Ivy McGowan Castleberry, and I am the Policy Research and Communications Administrator at Workforce Services and the Executive Director for the Council, Jennifer Welch. She falls under my division. So she is joining us remotely today. I'm just going to beg your patience and forgiveness for anything. We're trying to make this work without her level of skill and expertise. And so we'll be fine.
Awesome. I'm Trevor Mansfield. I'm Deputy Administrator of the Program Compliance Team. So we oversee the policy side of the WIOA programs and some other programs in the agency.
Adcall, and I'm the Strategic Operations Manager with Department of Workforce Services out of Cheyenne. And my team provides some support to Jennifer in getting some information and materials ready for the council. And I was just really here as an extra set of hands to make sure that we could get this set up. So, there you go.
Am I supposed to do this? Yeah, okay. I'm Tony Cross. Hi. Chief Human Resources Officer at the Jackson Hole Airport. I live in Kelly, Wyoming. And then on the council, I also chair the Sector Partnerships and Career Pathways Committee, which has the honor of being the longest named committee. Thank you very much.
Hi, I'm Debbie Zelnowski, and I am the General Manager of the Holiday Inn Express in Gillette, Wyoming.
Hi, I'm Wendy Fiskajohn. I own a safety consulting business in Gillette.
Hello, I'm Brenda Morgan. I am the training director for the Wyoming Statewide Electrical Apprenticeship Program. We train people to become inside wireman electricians, and we are based in Casper. I have been on the council since 2019.
Travis Lawrence, and I live in Buffalo, Wyoming. I'm the president of First Northern Bank of Wyoming. I am the current chair of the Strategic Performance and Finance Committee. And so let me be the first to sink my teeth into you and invite you onto my committee. So we're always looking for new recruits. So if you're interested in reviewing financials, reviewing grants, they get pushed up to the council as well as our eligible provider that offers services to the state of Wyoming. I invite you to come talk to me.
Ron Wild. I work for Rocky Mountain Power and I represent industry on the council.
I'm Larry Fodor with Mechanical Systems, Inc. out of Cheyenne, Wyoming.
Hello, my name is Charlie Wilson. I'm a marriage and family therapist here in the Lander Riverton area, private practice. And my wife and I run a small clinic called the Soldier's House of Fremont County. And I'm basically on the board representing veterans issues, and I live in Lander. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Dan Meyer. I'm the training director for plumbers, pipe fitters, HVAC service technicians for all of Wyoming. And I'm based out of Cheyenne, and I'm new to the council.
Phil Cornella. I'm the business manager for the International Union of Operating Engineers for Wyoming. I live in Glen Rock, and I'm not sure how long I've been on the council. Yeah.
Good afternoon. I'm Ron Goldberg. I'm the Strategic Partnerships Director for the Wyoming Business Council, the state of Wyoming's economic development agency. Welcome to all the newcomers. Excited to have you.
And I am Liz Gagan. I am the director of the Department of Workforce Services, and I am at DWS's headquarters in Cheyenne.
Great. Thank you all for sharing. And once again, welcome new council members. You know, we've got some really great training programs coming for you to kind of get you familiar, but excited to have such new faces, new talent, new perspectives, new visions join the council. So we also do have a special guest today. We've got a lot of DWS folks there in the back. So thank you all for attending as well. Appreciate that. We also have the mayor of Shoshone who just decided to show up. So we have Joel. I don't know, Joel, did you want to say any words to the council? Thanks for joining. Well, thank you, Mr. Mayor, for joining us today. Really glad that you're here. I also do believe we have one other special guest. We have one of the tribal. Yes.
Thank you again. Next time around, I'm sure I can get some of the programs involved. We have Terrell, but it's a joint program, and that is our Tribal Employment Rights Organization. I'm sure some of you are probably familiar with them. I did get to see them the other day. I'm not sure if they're going to be here at all. Maybe tomorrow morning they may show up. So if it's okay with the council, I'll probably certainly invite them. Right. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much again for coming. I think I speak for all of us. We're very excited to be here in Fort Washakie and learn about all the stuff there. So, all right. And then, today also, before we kind of get into our roll call, today obviously is a kind of a somber day. It is September 11th. So I would just like, as we begin the council meeting, if we just don't mind taking a moment of silence for those who lost their lives. All right. Thank you. All right, so we're going to go ahead and move on to our first agenda item, which is going to be roll call and introduction. So Jennifer, do you mind doing roll call for us, please?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. And again, sorry for my absence. I became violently ill yesterday and ended up at the emergency room last night. I'm going to keep my camera off. Nobody wants to see this. But I'm glad to still be able to be virtual with you, at least for a few moments today. I'm sorry I can't be there. Governor Mark Gordon or designee?
Present.
Senator Fred Baldwin. Representative Ryan Berger. Ron Wild.
Present.
Tony Cross.
Present.
Dick Smith. Chair Eric Trowbridge.
Present.
Larry Fodor.
Present.
Michael Kircher. Bria Hammett.
Present.
Deborah Zolnowski.
Present.
Wendy Fiskett-John.
Present.
Tina Conley. Nathan Williams. Philip Cornella.
Here.
Brenda Morgan.
Present.
Jenny Bureau. Charles Wilson.
Present.
Ann Meyer.
Present.
Matthew Davis.
Present.
Director Elizabeth Gagan.
Present.
Nikki Harper. Mayor Matt Hall. Katie Hogarty. Travis Lawrence.
Present.
Dr. Ben Moritz or designee.
Present.
Superintendent Degenfelder or designee. Director Corinne Schmidt or designee. Josh Durrell or designee.
Ron Goldberg, present.
Mr. Chairman, you have a quorum.
Great. Thank you, Jennifer. All right, before we move on to our first agenda item, which is approval of our May minutes, just some quick housekeeping things. All of you know we've got restrooms just out the door, snacks, coffee, water is available to you there. And as some of you have mentioned in your introductions, for those of you who are new to the council or who are not part of a current subcommittee, it's a great opportunity to learn about what these subcommittees do and highly encourage you to get involved in those when the time comes. So And then just make sure, since we do have a virtual audience as well, when you're speaking, just push that little green button. You'll see the little green light so that they can hear you online. And then when you're done speaking, just turn that off. So let's make sure to keep the microphones in that way. And I'm going to go ahead and move on to our approval of our May minutes. So on our onboard platform, you should have had the opportunity to review the May 2024 quarterly minutes. And so I would welcome a motion to approve those minutes.
So moved.
All right, so it's moved by Ron. Do I have a second?
Mr. Chairman, I second.
All right, seconded by Brenda. Any council discussion around the May quarterly minutes? All right, hearing none. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, the approval of the agenda minutes has passed. Next up, I guess it's me, message from chairman. Okay. For those of you who don't know me, I was recently appointed as the new chair of the Wyoming Workforce Development Council. I've been on the council for about 6.5 years. I served as a council member for about 2 or 3. And then I was also can they hear me?
Mr. Chairman, if I may.
Yes.
Can we vote on the agenda, please?
Oh, I skipped one. Yes. So we'll get back to that later. So we do have the agenda. All of you have the agenda in onboard, so you should have been able to see that. So I would welcome a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
All right, moved by Mr. Tony Cross. Do I have a second?
A second.
Second by Bria Hammock. All right. Any council discussion around the agenda? Hearing none. All of those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Thank you, Jennifer. Approval of agenda and May minutes are too close together on here. All right. Well, so I've been on the council for 6.5 years. I served as vice chair for the last 3. And, real quick background, I love this council. I think this council has incredibly amounts of important work and decisions and learning. So, from my start, I started Wyoming's first technology and design school in Cheyenne called Array. And honestly, my school would never have gotten off the ground had I not partnered with the Department of Workforce Services and the Workforce Council. Some of the grants and opportunities like the pre-hire economic development grant really got our school going. And so really I have a very personal love for what we do. And I'm honored to serve as your chair and been on here. And I think, really encourage a culture of feedback and ideas and opportunities, how we better partner. So I do have kind of like 5 tentpoles that I think you'll kind of see over the next 4 years that in some way, just kind of how do we optimize, how do we make this council even better than what it is today? So my first tentpole that I'm going to be focusing on in partnership with all of you. So I want these conversations to continue outside of our council meetings. My first tentpole is really awesome council engagement and participation. So I think we do a great job there, but I want to kind of turn the volume up when we travel to our sites, up to 3 times a year, really having the ability to ask questions and dive deeper and participate. So looking at even small little things like how do we better onboard our council members and offboard, right? The training, even something as simple as a buddy system, right? You're new to the council, might be kind of intimidating. You don't know a lot of these people, but having someone to hey, what did they mean when they said this? So little small things I think we could tweak to really increase our engagement and have a really great council experience. That also kind of comes into play when we do our site visits, making sure that who we're visiting knows why we're there, and we thank them for that. And we have a discussion around those site visits. So it's not just a large group of people randomly showing up one day and then leaving, so I'm looking for optimizations in that arena as well. And then my second one, which is really important to me, is just kind of continuously looking at our bylaws and making sure that our bylaws actually have the stuff in there that we need. And if there's anything that needs to get updated regarding our bylaws, and ensuring that all of our conversations and our guests and our visitors are truly aligned to our strategic plan and our vision. And so one of the things you'll start seeing on some of our agendas is when we have speakers, to let via onboard, what is kind of the action behind that speaker? Are we here to be informed, advise, give feedback, or is this something that we would potentially consider for funding, et cetera? So it'll be a little bit more when you hear from a speaker why they're here and why they're speaking to us. My third one, which is also really important, is just stronger interstate connections, right? You know, Ron's a great example of being a great ambassador to this council on behalf of the Wyoming Business Council, but there's a lot of great boards and commissions out there. And I think being able to solidify those handshakes and those relationships, I think we've done a good job, and I think we can do better in maintaining that so that we're not stepping on someone's toes if they've already been working on it. And there might be things that the Business Council can do that we just can't, right, by the Department of Labor. So being able to know where we can innovate and where we can move, we have to get to know these people a little bit better and work with them. And then my fourth tent pole is innovation and program review. So one kind of idea is like, I love the programs that the GWS provides. And, you know, I just had, wouldn't it be fun if we focused on one program, let's say apprenticeships or maybe internships, and we just do maybe like a little SWOT analysis as a council, right? Like, what are the strengths of our current internship program? What are our weaknesses? What are the opportunities or threats we have? And have like a little whiteboarding session, right, as a council. So that way we can walk away and like, our apprenticeship program is fantastic, our internship program, but how do we make it better, right? So it's enhancing these programs, and really want the council to get engaged in those collaborations. And then lastly, it's just kind of like, you know, again, it's a culture kind of refresh in a way. Mr. Bureau, you're right over here. Which, you know, we have very, very important work, but I really want to encourage fearless feedback. You know, if there is something that I could have done better, you can go, Mr. Chairman, ET, you know, maybe next time we could do X, Y, and Z. Like, I'm not going to take that personally. You know, like if we're all have the same goal of making the workforce in Wyoming world-class, and we used to call it at Apple called fearless feedback. You know, hey, maybe next time we could do this or that. So really a culture refresh, and I would really love any and all opinions on these. And lastly, you know, I think hopefully we all share my same big vision, which is over the course of the next 4 years is continue to build a world-class workforce system for Wyoming. Our residents here deserve that. And where that truly actually begins to make that dream a reality is we have to have a world-class council. Right. And so we've got some great ingredients here. So now it's about the polish, the finish, and really kind of creating some really great stuff together. So this again, thank you for being a part of the council. I encourage feedback and ideas, and I will go ahead and hand off to our next agenda item for Director Gagan on giving us a Department of Work Services update.
Thank you, Chairman Trowbridge. Hello to you all, and thank you, of course, for being here. I know many of you are new, and this is my second council meeting, so I'm new as well, although I have been with the department since 2020. And I do want to just kind of point out, I'm so glad that Matt Davis is here in April. I was in Riverton at the funding summit that was sponsored by Senators Lummis and Barrasso. And one of our regional Department of Labor, I suppose overlord's not the correct word, but someone who we work with a lot at the Department of Labor, kind of oversees the audit function and many of the audits that we go through. He was kind enough to be there as well. And on Matt's first week, maybe the second day, we'll say, you know, in his new role at Job Corps, he was kind enough to bring the two of us and two other employees who are at the summit on a tour of Job Corps. And that was really enlightening to me. I had never been there before. And so I'm very happy that he's on the council, and very happy that he and Jerry will kind of update us and kind of enlighten us on some of the great work that they do there. At DWS, we finally have a full executive staff following Director Cooley's departure. So in the deputy position, Jason Wolf has stepped into that. Jason has been with the department for a number of years, primarily in the workers' compensation part of the office, but has been the administrator of workforce standards since 2017. And so then, of course, that created another vacancy, which was his. And we recently filled that vacancy with Karen Bebency. Karen has been overseeing our OSHA program for a number of years and is an engineer, so kind of brings a little bit different, you know, a little different kind of mindset maybe than some of the rest on our executive team. I want to give you an update on some of the grant projects. We are in the final kind of stretches of ARPA. So what I mean by that is that our ARPA projects have to be fully obligated by December 31st of this year. And the governor's office has asked us to really make that October 1st of this year so they can get a good handle on what funds may not be spent so they can be put towards a good use. So we're kind of trying to button up many of those projects. We have 5. The first one is talent transition, which of course the council is very familiar with. The next is Why Health Train, which is an ability for us to grant up to $10,000 to students in the healthcare arena who meet certain financial kind of safeguards that fit in with the Treasury's definition. And we have 193 students enrolled in that program with 12 in the hopper, and they're working really, really hard to get as many more in as we can before that October 1 deadline. We have an early childcare program. The numbers for that program aren't anywhere as large as Why Health Train, but we have been able to kind of supplement another program that DWS offers to provide help for associates, well, for degrees in early childhood. We have an upskilling program that the workforce centers have been working with us on, and that is an opportunity to provide ARPA or WIOA types of services to people who may be making more money than WIOA eligibility would allow. So as kind of an example, one of the participants is a single mother of 1 child. She does not receive very much money in child support, but she is a supervisor in the hospitality realm. So she makes too much money to be able to kind of walk into the workforce center and receive help with training. But because the ARPA allows us to help people up to 300% of the federal poverty level. So she is going to go to welding school and, is well on her way to being able to provide a better living for herself and for her child. And then we have a pre-apprenticeship program where we're helping some students get into different programs, where apprenticeships are available. So kind of helping some students maybe do some career exploration types of things before they need to make a decision, about maybe where they want to end up in the workforce. And although we won't be able to kind of enroll any more students in that program, we will have a employee who is going to be able to continue with kind of outreach on pre-apprenticeship programs up until the ARPA deadline, which is December 31st, 2026. And that deadline is for basically all of the ARPA funds to have been spent. So we hope to kind of continue on some pre-apprenticeship work that we've been able to do and a lot of outreach with the schools. Another grant that we are working on is the Co-Y engine, and Lauren Shainfeld and I, Lauren is really heads up the Wyoming kind of part of that grant, and we both kind of serve on the board. But this is a grant that was given from the National Science Foundation, and it is meant to build a climate tech sector. And I know when I started, I didn't know what the climate tech sector was or that it existed, but there are 6 areas that are involved in this climate tech sector. It's water availability and prediction, soil carbon capture data and analysis, methane emissions analysis, wildfire risk and protection, complex earth sensing, and extreme weather modeling. So a lot of that is predictions, and it kind of really works a lot with what I would say NCAR. And unfortunately, Michael Kircher isn't here, but he heads up the NCAR station right around Cheyenne. But a lot of predictability, and so a lot of IT types of jobs we hope to open once that is up and running. And those are the big grants, other than VR, but VR is working on a big grant, but we'll probably leave that for another time when Nikki Harper is here, because she can explain that grant and the work that they're doing much, much better than I can. Our unemployment insurance division is also working on grants, but those are grants from the Department of Labor that we have been given to make our services more accessible to claimants. So a big part of that work is translating form documents into plain English and into plain Spanish as well, so that anyone with a 5th grade education is able to understand what the letter means and what that claimant may need to do next. They're also working on some technology changes. They are making YUI into an Angular system, which will make it much easier for people with a smartphone to be able to navigate the UI claims system. So they are working on those and getting those kind of finished up. And so that is, a lot of what we are working on at the Department of Workforce Services.
Great. Thank you for the updates, Director. And yeah, we're ahead of time, so I guess I would open it. Any, based off of the update from the chairman and the director, I guess any council discussion or questions before we move on our updates? If so, let me know. All right. Hearing none, we will go ahead and move forward to our next agenda item, which is going to be presented by Christina West and give us a one-stop operations report, and primarily being able to ask any questions of Christina. So Christina, go ahead.
Hello, Mr. Chairman and committee members. This is really different for me. Normally I have a large PowerPoint presentation that I flip through and talk about all the great things we have going on. I was asked this time to provide data, which you all have access to, really just giving you numbers of people we've served, number of employers we've served, walk-ins that we've helped throughout that last quarter. So all of that information has been provided, and I didn't actually come with the big PowerPoint, but I definitely would like to hear from you and see what questions you may have of me. And I can also share some exciting things we're doing if that's something that you would like to hear.
All right, council discussion, because I'm looking at the PDF in the agenda and I don't see any numbers. Does anyone else see it, or is it just me? Oh, okay. Did we upload the wrong PDF or?
Mr. Chairman and committee members, I'm not sure. Do you?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, it looks like this one didn't upload correctly. Give me 5 minutes.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I would love to hear the exciting things you have going on.
Yeah, so while we're getting the numbers actually pulled up, go ahead and share what you'd like, Christina.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you, Mr. Chairman and committee members. First, you'll see more people from the workforce centers in the back. And one of the reasons that we're here is obviously the council, but we were also here because DVR is having their in-service this week, and we participated in the in-service. So DVR is under the WIOA umbrella, and they're a core partner, and they're the Title IV of the core partners. And one of our visions and what we're tasked with is working closely with DVR. And so we're doing that within the workforce centers, but we're also doing it in the leadership level and participating in cross training, shared training, and such. So Nikki Harper, who's not here today because of the in-service, they put together a panel where we really talked about our strengths, our weaknesses with that relationship. What are things that we can do better, and what are things that we're doing amazing already? So it was a great opportunity. We had a great presenter yesterday and did some cross training as well. And I would like to really quick, before I share any other exciting news, introduce some of our new staff. So not to embarrass anyone, but we have a new center manager for our Casper office. And this is Keegan Fox. So this is his third day. So nothing like, shocking him to DWS. And so please introduce yourself to him whenever there's time. And then we'll also be sharing a presentation regarding our Pathway Home Grant and how we're working with the Justice Involved. And so we have a new program manager, and her name is Salau. And so we have her with us as well. And I believe you've seen all the other faces in the audience. But again, we always welcome you to come to the Workforce Center. So if you have some time, please stop by the Lander Workforce Center. The Lander Workforce Center manager is Deanna, and I know that she would welcome you to the Lander Workforce Center or the Riverton Workforce Center. You want me to keep going, Jennifer, or?
If you want to, you looked at it a little bit. It looks like it just got updated, but if you have another couple minutes, that's fine. Yeah.
Of course. So thank you for letting me keep going. One of the things that we're really working on is streamlining our look and how we present the services within the one-stops. So it really starts with our resource computer. So within each workforce center, we have a resource area where individuals can come utilize the computers. Within the computers, we have our MIS system, which is called HireYO. And there's a lot of great tools there. So there's online mock interviews. They can record themselves and practice and watch those recordings, complete resumes, training, and so on and so forth. So we've really streamlined what those resource computers look like. We went to more of a kiosk system, so it's easier and more user-friendly for our individuals. A lot of individuals that come to the one-stops to use the computers, they don't have those computer skills that we have. And so they really need something that's point and click, very easy. They also have the help of our staff to help them navigate that. The next thing that's been exciting with the help of the comms team or the communications team is we've really taken that new branding. We have new banners, we have new tablecloths, we have we call them tchotchkes, things that you put out on the table for job fairs, educational fairs. And so that has just been a great thing for us to have a more professional look and really help us with that new branding. So that's been super exciting and something that we've rolled out just recently as well. So I see you have our numbers, and so I would entertain any questions with the data we've provided.
Mr. Chairman?
Oh, yes, Brenda.
Too early?
No.
I was curious on Casper specifically, because of course I'm from Casper. Walk-in traffic was like 3,359, but only the total number of people served was 93. Why such a difference? What is the count of actually being served?
Mr. Chairman and committee members, that's a really great question. So the walk-in numbers are individuals that walk into the resource area and they utilize the computers. Some of them may never need assistance from staff, or if they do need assistance from staff, it's very simple. Maybe we're walking over to the computer and we're just helping them navigate. Or maybe they're using the resource room because they're applying for unemployment insurance and we have a phone there that they'll pick up the phone and apply for UI benefits. So the walk-in numbers are a lot higher because those are self-served. They're not individuals that are seeing receiving one-on-one services. The actual numbers that you see there, can you scroll just, I believe those are actual individuals that are in actual programs. So they could be in WIOA, they could be in other more specific programs.
These are just WIOA participants in the participant served column.
We're looking. Okay, this looks a little different than when I submitted it. I think what we had originally provided was the breakdown of all the different programs. So within the programs, we could have 93 in WIOA. There could be so many in our TANF programs. There can be so many in the particular programs we serve. So I would need to actually look. It looks just a tad different, but if I'm not mistaken, was 93 WI? Yeah, 93 was WIOA. So I think the difference also is for the WIOA program, you have to meet eligibility requirements. And so that is going to streamline things down as well.
So I kind of have a follow-up question to that. I know that we're kind of short-staffed in some of the centers. Are you seeing, just because I had an apprentice that experienced this, they walked in for WIA services, they were told they couldn't be seen for up to 3 weeks later. Is that just because we're short-staffed, particularly? I did call and follow up what had happened. He actually got put into the wrong program, and a youth participant was able to help him, just because we didn't want him to wage out so he could get help with his tools. I was just curious if we're just seeing that in the higher traffic areas like Casper and Cheyenne, or if it's that a whole statewide issue where we're having to put people off just a little bit for that.
Mr. Chairman and committee members, that's a really great question. And I would like to say it, and unfortunately, it sometimes depends. I don't think I can say, you know, it always is this way for one center and not the other. I will say in the Casper Workforce Center, we have been short-staffed and we've had turnover due to, you know, Shannon leaving, being promoted, new center manager. So that definitely has happened. I will say we've seen increased numbers in our other programs, and I think that also has, you know, we're doing more with less staff. And so that does sometimes push staff or push appointments back. I don't have any data to tell you how far back that sometimes happens, but I would say usually we can get people in, I don't know, sometimes it is 2 to 3 weeks.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, just one other thing for you to consider, Brenda, Christina, you know this as well. You know, I'm sure you're aware that we're going through a changeover to an entirely different MIS system. So there have been a couple of periods where things have been shut down while we're trying to get that new system up. So there have been a couple of times where we've paused services for a couple of weeks. It's possible that may have fallen into one of those periods as well.
Thank you, Ivy.
I also too just want to say thank you, Ivy. I mean, that is very true. I did not want to mention the MIS because it can be quite an interesting topic, but we are seeing light at the end of the tunnel.
Awesome. Thank you, Christina. So everyone has the data. Look at the data and your updates there. Any other discussion from council regarding one-stop operation?
Mr. Chairman, I got
Yes,
one quick
Mr. Wright.
question.
Sure.
So down in Southwest Wyoming, the workforce centers have been doing career fairs. Is this something that is going to be seen across the state? And how can council members come and support your career fairs?
Mr. Chairman and committee members, I love that question. Yes, of course, we are really focused on our career fairs everywhere across the state. Some centers have, you know, monthly career fairs, especially in our larger centers. I know Cheyenne has our Workforce Wednesdays that we have every month. I know in Casper, they've gone to more of an individual highlighting employers throughout the week and often have those individual type of career fairs weekly. But let's connect because we would love to have the council help us as we plan our job fairs. I know in Cheyenne, we have a couple really big ones, and I know Amy Souza, the center manager in your area, would love to share what she has going on as well. Yeah. So it's a big thing. This is something that we will always continue to do.
I might already be tied in with it.
I figured so, but just in case.
Yeah, great question. Any other council discussion or questions around one-stop operation updates while we have Christina here? All right. Thank you very much, Christina, for those updates. And great work in our one-stops as always. And yeah, one of the things that we're kind of considering with these having the write-ups beforehand is actually spending time in our council meetings, like reviewing kind of the executive memo right here. So if you did not have the opportunity to review the meeting materials prior to the council, at least that way, all of us have had the opportunity to read it and have really good engaging conversation. So we'll be kind of budgeting some time for you to read some of these executive memos so that we can talk to the party involved there. Great. All right. Next up on our agenda, we're going to have Jennifer Cassidy present to us our spending plan and expenditures.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just want to make sure you can all hear me okay.
Sounds great, Jennifer. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you for letting us join virtually. For the new members, my name is Jennifer Cassidy. I am the Deputy CFO for the Department of Workforce Services. On the line also, we have Robin Martin, our lovely CFO. So we're going to go over our new spending plan here for fiscal year 2025, which started in July. As you can see, the current grant years we have open right now are 22, 23, and 24. On the council's expenditures, the 2022 grant is just about spent. And then we do have the dates listed on there of when those grants expire and the funds need to be spent. So we're doing great with 22 and of course shouldn't have any issues with the remaining $4 and getting that spent by 2025. If we scroll down, so for the month of July, total expenditures were just over $43,000. Nothing out of the ordinary there, just kind of our normal operating expenditures. Down at the bottom, we've updated our current projects that we have. Of course, the micro-credentialing, and we're hoping to have those final invoices and clear that out. The strategic planning with the vendor, there's a little bit left on that contract. The Southwest Wyoming Manufacturing Partnership is a next-gen support grant. Lift Wyoming, I believe, was a sponsorship, and then the Tri-County next-gen partnership as well. And then we left on board on here just to show that that contract and subscription for the year was completely paid out. But that will be falling off. Just wanted to ensure that we were showing that was paid. And Mr. Chairman, on the council side, those are my main updates, and I would be happy to answer any questions before we move on to the agency side.
Yeah, any council discussion? I think everything is looking good to me, but welcome any comments before we move on to the next. All right, Jennifer, you can go ahead and go to the next one.
Okay. And Jennifer Welch is helping me with the presentation here, but it's going to look very similar. This is just the operating side of the WIOA funds. And this is what the workforce centers receive to, again, operate administrative expenditures and then also serve the participants. So same grant years open. They've got just over 181,000 left of the 22 grant. But 96% spent. So we're doing good there and on track. There's a breakdown here of the budget for program or operations, administration, and then the participants. Participant dollars are broken out by the 3 different programs, which are adult, dislocated worker, and youth, and the funding that they have available as well. For the month of July, total expenditures were just over 309,000. And I believe those were all of my updates, and I'd be happy to answer any questions on this side.
Thank you, Jennifer. Any questions from the council or discussion around what's been presented to you? What is the Central SIR data, sir, for $6?
So our central services are services that are provided or that we pay our A&I department for. So in that category is our telecom and internet services throughout the agency. And so those are allocated. And my guess is that because it's just $6, we're kind of in between the billing period of when this data was pulled.
Okay, cool. Just curious. All right. Any other council discussion around our fiscal reports for fiscal year 2025 at this point? All right, hearing none, then I would welcome a motion to approve our spending plan and expenditures.
So moved.
All right, moved by Mr. Wild. Do I have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Bureau. Any council discussion or vote? All right, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion passes for spending plan and expenditures. Thanks again, Jennifer, for enlightening us and informing us, as always. All right, moving on to agenda item number 6. We're going to be taking a look at a grant request for a Next Gen Sector Partnership, and Jennifer will be presenting this grant request to us. So, Jennifer?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The Bighorn Basin Experience Sector is brought forth to the full council through approvals from the Next Gen Sector Partnership and Career Pathways Committee, and also the Strategic Performance and Finance Committee. They are requesting $12,000. I'll scroll down real quick to this funding section. They're requesting $5,000. They're requesting $12,000, sorry. Their in-kind or cash match, which this grant requires a 10% match. Their in-kind match is estimated at a little over $1,600. In my opinion, this is a low estimate, as it's time for each chamber's partners to travel to recruit businesses. So the goal of this grant, it has 4 objectives. The main goal is to grow the Experience Sector Partnership, so that's a hospitality sector partnership that's in Park, Bighorn, Washakie, and Hot Springs counties. Their plan is to grow the partnership by 50% in 1 year. They plan to do this by traveling those counties. They plan to catalog the businesses so that they can have an idea of what's in those counties, but then also, this is the what's in it for the businesses, get them on the Office of Tourism's partner portal. A lot of the mom and pop small tourism operations in these counties don't have the ability to get the proper copy and photos and just general knowledge of how to get on this portal. Would like to increase that by 25%. The partnership plans to go around the state to also work on our general workforce needs in those 4 counties. But the big thing here is to the big expense is for the contractor to go around with the chambers for those 4 communities and really help sell their business so that they can grow, they can hire more people, they can get proper training for their people, and to grow the partnership. So this is kind of their step 1 to really get that buy-in for their partnership.
Great. Anything else, Jennifer?
That's it. I stand for questions.
All right, council questions. I think ultimately, overall, I'm always excited about the fact of growing Next Gen Sector Partnerships, and it's a huge strategic initiative for us. But questions or council discussion around this grant request? Oh, do we have any online? Do we have a raised hand online? Oh, Mr. Mayor Hall?
Mr. Chairman, I have obviously highly supportive of this grant request, and I think Jennifer did a good job of covering the reasons for it. You know, it's a way to we're pretty spread out on the Bighorn Basin with a lot of the businesses that are, you know, participating in the hospitality tourism, and so this is a good way for us to really kind of coalesce that partnership, give them a little something as far as that access with the Office of Tourism, and help grow this area for this next gen partnership, which has not really had a working one for quite some time. And so I again just highly supportive of it. I guess I would ask if do I need to recuse myself? I'm not getting anything directly for this, but I guess if anyone thinks that I should not vote on this, I'd be happy to recuse myself.
I don't personally see any kind of conflict of interest with this. Jennifer, do you have any thoughts?
No, he doesn't personally benefit from this vote. He is
Okay,
the
that's what I thought.
convener, but he doesn't personally, I mean, he just brings people together, but he doesn't personally benefit.
Cool. So
It's
Mayor, I
always-
guess, yes, you can vote.
Okay, it's always best practice when you're in these situations to ask ahead of time. And so thank you. Thanks for humoring me.
Yes, and thank you, Mayor. I love how you're bringing together a region, and to your point, like it's been there, but this hopefully can kind of give a little bit more of a kickstart to it and kind of get some more excitement and start building a larger foundation for future innovation. So I like it. I looked through this last night and I thought it was a cool proposal. So what do you think, Council? Ron?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just maybe more of a comment than a question. I was on the next gen group, I guess, that Tony leads, and we discussed this. And I like that, you know, at the Business Council, we talk about the economic development flywheel. So if you look at just on its face, there's more to this and there's layers, and you get that flywheel going. It is a big region, which is cool. And I think starting off, it's a way to coalesce that and make businesses aware of the opportunity that this can create. And it could create greater employment, existing business expansion. Who knows? Could lead to outdoor equipment manufacturing. So I think this is a pretty cool start, and just wanted to kind of comment on that economic development flywheel. There are more layers to this than you just see in the slide. So thank you.
Yeah, great comments. Thank you, Mr. Goldberg. Anyone else want to comment on? Yeah, Mr. Cross?
I'm glad I have Ron Goldberg on the committee to articulate things better than I can. But I think this is, on behalf of the committee, we did discuss this quite a bit. I think this is an excellent example of what the next gen grants are intended for. It fills a clear gap in the region, as Mayor Hall explained. And I wanted to just reemphasize a point that Jennifer did make, but I wanted to make it again. Part of our grant application requirement is a 10% in-kind or cash contribution on the part of the partnership that is requesting the grants. And this one, as Jennifer said, I think has been estimated very conservatively. And the point the reason I want to bring attention to that is that I believe the skin in the game, so to speak, on the part of those who are going to be doing the work on the ground is actually a lot more than what they've represented. And which is a good thing. It means that they're, we'll find out if this is approved and by the end of the project, but I think they're going to put a lot more of their own time into it than what's represented here. And so to me, that has a good value to this board as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Cross. Any other council discussion on this grant request? All right, no one online. So hearing none, then I would welcome a motion to approve this grant request in the total of $12,000.
So moved.
Oh, who's that?
I said so moved, but I don't know.
Oh,
I'll second.
okay. Well, moved by Mr. Bureau.
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Cross. All right. Any other further council discussion before we go into vote? All right, hearing none. All in favor of approving this grant request, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, this request has been moved forward successfully and the grant will be sealed. Good. All right, thank you. And next up, we also have agenda item number 7, Next Gen Support Grant Changes. Presenters Tony Cross and Jennifer. I don't know which of you would like to kick us off on this agenda item.
I can go ahead, Jennifer.
I was gonna say, I can start and Tony can explain. I'm just gonna scroll to the change. There's only one change to the Next Gen Support Grant. The proposal brought forth to the full council that the Sector Partnerships and Career Pathways Committee would like to change the Next Gen Sector Partnership grant opportunity to have the partnerships apply for up to $25,000 instead of the $5,000 that was there, because in the 2.5 years that I've been working with the council has not approved anything at 5,000 or less. So, and no grant requests have come in the last 2 years for under 5,000 or less. They've all been around 12 to 15,000. And so the idea was to set, for now, there's further discussion with strategic performance and finance, but for now to change the grant application to up to $25,000 and leaving everything else the same, including the 10,000 or the 10% in kind match.
Sure. Thanks, Jennifer. I would add to that and encourage and ask anyone on the committee to fill in the blanks that I may be leaving here. But this is probably not the last that the council will hear about this application as we continue to revise it. We're trying to revise both the application process and the application itself to facilitate more grant funding opportunities across the state and partnerships that are either established or getting up and running. The $25,000 number the committee agreed on is a provisional number. It doesn't mean that something larger can't be funded, nor does it mean that a request has to meet that level. We can still take any request for any amount. But I think as Jennifer explained, the feeling was that the 5,000 limit had been there for a long time. We never got anything under $5,000. And so we wanted to kind of raise it in order to encourage hopefully some more requests. So hopefully that helps and happy to try to answer any questions. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you, Ms. Cross. Thank you, Jennifer. Other council discussion around this proposed change to our Next Gen grant application? I would say based on the data that you provided, Jennifer, it does make sense, right? If we're, and 5,000 isn't trying to build for this, it's not enough for a lot of folks. And that's why we're seeing the grants come in higher. So I think it does make a lot of sense to put it into our application that they can go up to 25 and potentially more, obviously on council approval. So I am definitely in favor of it. Is there any other discussion that we want to have before we move to a vote? And also just thank you for the work on this in your subcommittee. So I'm excited to kind of see how else you're going to continue to look at it, improve it, and enhance it. So this is a good first step in that direction. So thank you. All right, hearing no council discussion, then I will welcome a motion to approve the change, moving it from $5,000 to $25,000 for the Next Gen grant application. So do I have a motion?
So moved.
All right, it's been moved by Mr. Weil. Do I have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Bureau. Any further council discussion before vote? All right, hearing none. All in favor to approve this grant application change, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, the motion passes. Thank you, Jennifer, and thank you, Tony. All right, moving on to, let's see, where are we at? We are now on agenda item number 8. which is we're going to be talking about. It's hard to, for those of you who have been on the council, in the past, we were kind of getting into procurement phase again. So that's always a lively and interesting discussion. But we do have, when you talk about our one-stop bid exception request, or RFP discussion, and that's going to be presented to us by Ivy Castleberry. So Ivy, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And before I get started, well, first I probably need to get rid of the frog in my throat. Excuse me. What I want to say on this is, the way we thought we would do it this time is we'll just do a presentation, go through the information, and then and not vote on it this meeting. We'll have you vote on it in November. And then in November, there's a second part that's going to accompany this as well, which is the actual infrastructure MOU. They tie together, but we're just going to kind of take it slow because we do have some new folks. And so what we wanted to do today was just go over the information and let you have some time to digest it, and then come back in November, and we'll have you vote then. So this is just really kind of informational. And I know that we have several new members of the council with us today, which is great. I know that Jennifer also does kind of an introductory overview of WIOA. This is a massive program, and there are tons of moving pieces. And so I please feel free to ask questions as we're going through this information. So to start, I wanted to just kind of talk about how WIOA looks in a typical state. So in a typical state, you would have a council such as you all, that's the governor's council. But then there also are local workforce development boards. So obviously we have a very small population, but in your states where there's 5, 10, 15, 20 million, whatever that might be, you can imagine how difficult it would be to provide services consistently across a large population area like that. And so those larger states, they use local workforce boards. So like you, but smaller, and then they work within those communities themselves. Wyoming and a handful of other states is a little bit different because we don't have the massive population centers that you would find like in a Colorado, for example. So that's how a normal or typically you would see this structure, this WIOA structure in a different state. However, there are a handful of states that they just don't have with small rural populations spread out over vast amounts of land. And in those instances, the governor can request an exception. And so Wyoming is one of those states that was granted an exception. And I unfortunately don't know exactly when. I'd have to, 2014 was when the new WIOA rule came out. So I'm assuming sometime between 2014 and 2016. And what that allows us to do is be a single area state. So that means that basically you as the council, you're taking that, you're serving two roles. Technically, you're serving that role of the governor's council, that's statewide, but then you also are technically serving in a capacity that is also equivalent to a local workforce development board. Any confusion on that at all? I'm glad. It took me a little bit to get that. So as we go through the process, there are a couple of things that, because we are unique in that we are a single area state, and you act as a local workforce development board. When we go through the process of the procurement process, there aren't a lot of options that are out there. We know that. You could open this up to an RFP, or as we've done in the past, which is the sole source. So there is on the monitors, for those of you who have been around for a while, this probably all makes perfect sense to you. If you're newer, this is just kind of what it looks like. So we have the Department of Workforce Services and we have the Workforce Development Council. And there's a little bit of overlap in oversight, but only in specific areas. Obviously, the executive director is appointed by the governor to operate the Department of Workforce Services. So what does that look like? What is the role then of the council and how does that fit together? So if you're looking at this diagram here, you're going to see that there are some dotted lines there. So, and those dotted lines are really kind of like there's some collaboration and maybe some semi oversight, but it's not total oversight over the Department of Workforce Services. And then we also have the one-stop operators. And again, because we're a single area state, and we do this through, we use the Department of Workforce Services to actually deliver those services. So because of that, and because of the fact that you also operate as a local workforce development board, one of the things that's really important is we have to have a firewall, since this is all handled internally. So this is just kind of gives you, when we look at how does this fit together, and then into the procurement process there. So what you are going to be doing over the next couple of months is really looking at the current procurement process that's out there that has been used, and making that decision. Is that you're going to continue moving forward that way, or do you have questions and you want to look at another option? I know that for those of you who have been on this council for a while, and those discussions, there really isn't another provider, or we don't believe that there's another provider out there that would be able to offer the services the way that the one-stop services are provided through the Department of Workforce Services. But we still have to go through the process. The process is really important. In fact, recently, as we've been working on developing the infrastructure agreement, or the MOU, and then also this procurement document for you, I did a little bit of digging, and so we came across an evaluation report that the Department of Labor had completed on their behalf. And in that, they included 3 single workforce area states. And they talked briefly about how each of those single workforce area states went about the procurement. And so, for example, one of them, they ran a successful competition. So that would be through an RFP. And then the other, they used through the governor's office, they issued a sole source, which is what Wyoming has typically done in the past. And then there was a third state, and it was interesting to me, but they received notification from the Department of Labor that they had not run a successful competition because they didn't have the appropriate firewalls in place. And so DOL sent them back to go through the process, get that straightened up, and make sure that they had all of those important pieces in place before they went through the procurement process. So today I just wanted to go through a couple of things in this document, just to highlight a couple of things for you. And again, those of you who were here the last time that this procurement process went through, this document has not changed very much at all. There's a little bit of new information there and kind of what that procurement requirement looks like. And so it starts off with who, eligible entities, who would be eligible to apply. And then it really kind of highlights what those requirements are and the expectations of the one-stop operator. The services, excuse me, the services that are to be delivered. And then the area where there's probably the largest update is really in the end of the document, where it talks about the funding. and we went over this yesterday or the day before with fiscal. So I'm hoping that if you have any questions on that, well, you can, maybe fiscal can throw me a lifeline here and help with this. But one of the things that I wanted to point out are the largest changes. And I'm sure you'll recall that last year when the biennium budget was submitted, there was an exception request that was included in the budget for some additional general fund dollars to help be able to cover the costs. Because right now we receive about $5 million over the various programs, whether that's the adult, dislocated worker, youth. But that doesn't cover all of the expenses that exist out there with the one-stop services that are across the state. And so in the past, there had been some use of the ESF funds, and I'm going to look to Director Gagan. If you don't know, I can't remember what that acronym stands for, but
Employment support funds.
oh, thank you. Emergency was stuck in my head, and I was like, that's not right. And so the legislature approved the budget exception this year. So we have, there's a little bit more now in the general funds that you're going to see in those tables, and then the ESF, or the employment support funds, that actually decreased a little bit because the general fund allocation was able to make up for that. So this was really just kind of a high level so that you have that opportunity over the next couple of months to review the document. And then if you have questions, there we can really engage in some thoughtful discussion before you vote on it in November.
Great. Thank you, Ivy. Yeah, I'm a very visual person, so seeing it out this way makes a lot of sense to me. And you bring up a lot of good points, Ivy, that we're one of the very few states in the country that is a single area state. We talk about a lot at the National Governors Association, and I guess the good news about that is it provides us a fast track to actually making change happen more quickly, right? So like in a large state like Colorado, there'd be a smaller group like this, 7, 9 of them spread out around the state in their local, economic development regions. Then you have the big state board. We are the state board, and we also serve as the local as well, right? And that's why it's very important when we look at new council members that we have diversification across and representation around multiple industries in multiple parts of Wyoming. And that firewall, truly, to your point, Ivy, is there to protect us. Right. Because we are a single area state, having that firewall there kind of makes it a little bit more clear what the DWS is responsible for executing on behalf of our procurement, as well as what this council is set up to do and what we're responsible for. So just thanks again for continuing to polish this up, make updates. I thought the visuals were great. But yeah, questions for Ivy around. I'm not sure if you'd seen this diagram before or not. Actually, it's new to me. Earlier this year.
We did, Mr. Chairman, we did take the older version and update it so that because the previous version, it kind of looked like maybe the council had oversight over the entire Department of Workforce Services, and that wasn't an accurate representation. So we were trying to get a visual that was much more accurate in what that representation looked like.
Yeah, that's why I like the when I first saw it, I was like the firewall, but it made sense, right? Like the things that we're responsible for as council and what DWS is like, and that partnership, the partnership between the council and DWS is like critically important. And something that I had an opportunity to partake in a couple of weeks ago. I think you brought in a lot of the WIOA partners. And I'll just kind of like remind this to the council too, like Jennifer let me know about it, that the WIOA leaders were all that strategic planning that we have been doing over the last couple of years and like setting all the goals and benchmarks and that kind of stuff. I went to the Workforce Center in Cheyenne, and actually all these people drove in and they were going through our strategic plan, and they were all like, okay, cool, we're going to do this. And it was actually really cool as a council member to actually be there and like seeing our strategic plan, like coming to life, like people talking about that bullet point around branding and awareness, and the council wants this. And it was actually great for me to be there because sometimes like they're like, what did the council mean when they did this? You know, so I was able to kind of like pitch in every now and then and kind of help. But it was really cool to see how we as a council create a lot of the strategic vision and oversee that. But then truly is about creating that vision that the GWS staff, you know, execute. And it's really cool to see how much work they put into it and like actually see it come to life. So yeah, I encourage that. So I also am going to encourage when those kind of things happen too, that it'll be an optional, you know, so in the calendar, like on onboard, like if you have time and you're in Cheyenne or wherever this meeting is, if you want to pop in for 30 minutes, great, you know, so we'll kind of figure out which meetings would make the most sense for council members to join optionally if they want to. But yeah, any other questions for Ivy or regarding this slide, council? Do you like it? Does it make sense? Okay, I'm hearing that. Then that's a yes for sure. So is there a second part to your presentation, Ivy?
I was just doing it all together. I figured you probably would not appreciate it if I sat down and started reading the procurement document that is in onboard. So I just went over a couple of the things that the main areas where you'll definitely want to kind of hone in on there. But I also wanted to point out that the on the budget piece that does look quite a bit different because of the general fund exception that the legislature did grant. So.
Yeah. So like Ivy said, you know, we have a pretty big vote coming up in November around this. And so it's going to be really important that all of you take the time to read that MOU and the procurement process document so that we are informed and ready to go to make that decision in November, because we legally have to have a vote from this council by the end of this year, right? And we only have one more council meeting remaining after this.
Mr. Chairman, that is slightly less clear.
Oh,
So
here we
in the guidance from DOL, they talk about the one-stop operator, the procurement process, and that has to be done every 3 years. However, it fits into the broader umbrella of the infrastructure agreement. And so what the infrastructure agreement is, and we'll get into this again in more detail in November, but basically DOL requires all of those required partners that there's some shared cost in delivering services, whether that is, you know, those Department of Ed partners or DFS, for example. Because we're all working with the same clients, the idea is that those required partners also have some fiscal responsibility in how those services are delivered. And so that infrastructure agreement is really how those costs get allocated amongst the partners. And now I forgot where I was going with that. So in that infrastructure, so when we visit the infrastructure agreement, that's really what we're going to be looking at. That has to be done that's where I was going with. That has to be done every 4 years. But DOL certainly recommends that under the umbrella of the infrastructure agreement, that the one-stop operator procurement process and the MOU with the one-stop operator is done under that as well. So we've got every 3 years for one part of that, every 4 years for another part of that. So part of the procurement process, we need to get that done for the 3-year requirement. But because of how they fit together, you know, I don't believe that we're going to actually ask you to vote on the infrastructure agreement piece until January. Because again, we'll give you those couple of months to review the information and come back if you have any other questions. So it's a little bit wonky in that a piece of this has to be done every 3 years. The other piece of this only has to be done every 4 years. But when we talked about it, we decided, well, because they're so integral to each other, we're just going to do them every 3 years.
Yeah, and that makes sense. So cool. Anything else, council, that you'd like to ask Ivy about or clarify? So we're all super informed come November. All right, hearing none, then thank you, Ivy, very much for your presentation. And yeah, we'll continue to use onboard in between the council meetings to share additional information, notes. I'll definitely be poking some of you to remind you, like, yeah, please just get familiar with it so we can have a really good, engaging conversation around this topic come November. So it was a pretty important decision that we have to make. So. Most excellent. Well, looks like our agenda item 9 is a break. So I think we're overdue we're ahead of schedule. This is just fantastic. So see, it's 2 because we're supposed to go on our break at 3:15. So it's 2:25. Let's go ahead and take let's take 20 minutes. Let's see, 20. Let's do 2. Let's reconvene at 2:45. So stretch, talk, network, get snacks, all that stuff. And so I'll reconvene the meeting at 2:45.
Sorry.
Oh, no problem. All right, everyone, 20 minutes is wrapping. So if you want to make your way back to your seats, we'll get started here shortly. All right, it is 2:46. 2:46. Yes. I need a gavel. Yeah, I do. I have a gavel at home. Okay, so Ivy, I believe, is handing some materials out to us as she attacks Dan, our new council member. All right, everyone. So I know we're all very social creatures, so yep. All right, folks, please take a seat. We're going to get started. We've got 3 agenda items left before we talk about our site visit and wrap up day 1. So I believe Ivy's handing out a WIP partnership phase 2 report. So that's there for your knowledge and information. And our 10th agenda item next up is going to be justice involved hiring. And our presenters today are going to be Salau, say that right? Salau, Ron Goldberg, and Julie Garza. So who would like to kick off this presentation? Come on down.
Oh, is this on? Okay. Sorry about that. Mr. Chairman, members of the council, my name is Salau Weeks, and my journey with DWS started January of last year as a transitional case manager for the Career Compass program. And I have since moved into the reentry program manager position. I've provided a handout for today for all of you to review. And what I want to discuss and focus on today is justice involved second chance hiring. And it's not only crucial to, it's not just a social social problem, but it's also an economic one. And I just want to focus on like those employment barriers and how DWS can continue to make an even bigger impact going forward. If we start by looking at the bigger picture, 34% of non-working men ages 25 to 54 have a criminal record, and for them, finding a job isn't just, I mean, it's not just difficult. They have significant barriers that prevent them from just reintegrating into society after releasing from incarceration. It's not like they can just go out and just pick up a job, but they can get sometimes a survival job. And it's not always stable. As a nation, these individuals being underemployed or unemployed is about a 78 to 87 billion-dollar loss to the economy each year. And so I believe that here in Wyoming, we have a chance to really make an impact and help rebuild their lives. So the Career Compass program, as you may have known, is funded by the Department of Labor's Pathway Home Grant. And it's meant to help these individuals transition from incarceration into the workforce and prevent recidivism. Since the program's inception, we've received approximately 600 referrals. This is due to our MOU and collaboration with Department of Corrections. Per our last quarterly reports, we received, we have approximately 260 participants enrolled in the program, with approximately 164 in follow-up services. But I don't think that it's just about the numbers. I think that from my years of working with this population, they've shown a lot of resilience and hope, and they are really striving for that second chance. I could highlight a few or a couple success stories. One participant was co-enrolled in WIOA and obtained his CDL, and he secured a great job. It's reported that he's earning $1,000 to $5,000 a week, which sounds amazing. Sounds like an unbelievable figure, but we should be able to track this in our follow-up services and ensuring that he's able to retain this job and for job retention. And this is the kind of success that we hope to continue to replicate and pave the way for others that follow. Another participant was released in February of this year and quickly found work in a local retirement home. With the help of WIOA funding, they received the work clothing they needed to start their employment. Fast forward a few months down the road, and they secured their own housing, and they have been promoted to a supervisory role. So it's really stories like this that remind us why this work matters. And then with this program, we've also had Wi-Fi installed in the 5 DOC facilities, where these participants would have access to tablets and certain applications such as career assessments, Premier Virtual. They could have mock interviews, and access to resources and other jobs. And then, the hope is that they'll be able to have higher WIO on there as well. And then we're still working out plans to have CDL modules that they'll be able to take. And in 2 of the facilities, we have CDL simulators in the Lusk Women's Prison and in the Torrington facility, with the hope that they can use these tools to help better prepare them for the CDL field, be able to pass pre-tests, get their permit, things of that nature. And then, of course, with all of this progress, we also have challenges. One being staff turnover. Since me stepping into this role, I've had to juggle transitional case manager and reentry program manager and learning the program, but hopefully we've gotten 2 transitional case manager positions filled in the Casper Workforce Center, and we'll be able to continue our participant enrollments, which our goal is to get up to 400 enrollments by the time that this grant is ending. And then another challenge has been our timelines, of course, is we have until the end of December 2025 to get to these numbers. Excuse me. The ACCs, or Adult Community Correction Centers, and halfway houses have had bed cuts, which have significantly stalled when we're able to work with our participants, and they may not release before our grant is ended. And then finally, collaboration is one of the main things that I think the strength of this program depends on. It takes a village, all of the partnerships, reentry programs, community organizations. One example is one of our transitional case managers in Cheyenne has built a really solid partnership with Bethel Ministries. And through this partnership, they've been able to help our participants, several of our participants, with just basic needs such as transportation, cell phones, things that they need to keep and to get and keep a job. So I think that really speaks volumes to having these partnerships, and he has even been invited to speak at their fundraising event next month. So I think to address some of the timeline issues, we'd like to submit a no-cost extension to this grant to maybe extend enrollments and make sure that we're able to get all of our enrollments by June of next year, I believe. Yep. Okay. And then I think another thing to really highlight is the importance of the WIOA program and having those partnerships with our workforce centers, because WIOA, it serves as the foundation that these justice involved individuals are a priority population. And that's essentially what the Career Compass program is a roadmap, a GPS to help these individuals focus on career pathways, even if that means working with them a little bit more through more intensive Wagner-Pizer services to help them get to, if they were WIOA training ready, to be able to receive those services. And then addressing any barriers that they may have, which could prevent them from getting employment. I think that moving ahead, we really want to just focus on second chance hiring. Our business rep, I know in Casper, is really good at handing out to employers information on WOTC, and then we encourage federal bonding with our participants. And I think that we also want to invest in high growth, high demand fields, and working with those businesses such as transportation, manufacturing, construction fields that are expected to see high growth in the coming years. And I think we need to continue to strengthen our collaborations with reentry programs, continuing to have that relationship with Department of Corrections so that we could help them prior to release, to have that plan before they're just going out into the world and not really knowing what to expect. And that way we are just able to really strengthen our workforce and have those skilled workers, hopefully through employment and training programs. Yep, And thank you, Mr. Chairman and council members.
Thank you, Slough. Ron or Julie, did you want to add to that?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Salau. You know, being part of the Justice Involved Work Group and seeing Salau very recently elevate to the position she's in, it's so impressive that she's jumped right in, and I kind of elevated my position on the working group too, to more of a participant to the business council's lead representative. We had someone from our agency go to another agency for a really cool dream job of his. So our little work group with Julie and Salau and others have, about 3 weeks ago, it's like, let's get the presentation to the Workforce Council, get that down and then we'll keep cranking. But just a quick perspective before I'd like to hand it over to Julie after this, with a great Department of Corrections presentation, a cool program they have. But, from E.T. talked about it in his chairman's report, and Salau mentioned the collaboration. It's so important. And, I think there was a time when agencies had their roles and we appreciated the workforce training grants and the WIOA programs, and we'd kind of like, here, we're concierge, you go, these people can help you. And I think now we're collaborating, and what we're doing is we're identifying problems, and some of them are chicken and egg problems. And so we have these work groups. We also have one for childcare and childcare deserts, and which inhibits numbers, prospective numbers in the workforce for people who can't go to work but want to. But the collaborative efforts are identifying problems and really working through what are the solutions, what's the data say. And so I guess, speaking on behalf of the Business Council, we have 6 regional directors throughout the state, and then there's workforce centers throughout the state. And we also provide state match funding to business technical assistance providers to their federal funding, like Wyoming Small Business Development Center and Manufacturing Works. And our staff, and I'm sure Workforce Services and SBDC and Manufacturing Works, you go out there and you meet with businesses, like, what's your number one problem? Probably 9 times out of 10, it's available workforce or trained workforce. And so, to achieve maximum employment, we need this all hands on deck mentality. And that's why we're all working together on this. We also have some nonprofits on that working group, like Climb Wyoming, and the Collective Health Trust based in Casper. Developing this ecosystem, or this kind of a 3-legged stool, so to speak, with government agencies working together, nonprofits, employers, people like Lauren Shainfeld representing the governor's office. So when we look at that, it's what do businesses need? We have our role. Workforce Services is contributing, they're the lead on this. And but we have manufacturers, just one example of an industry that they're like, we're doing pretty good, and we want to expand, and we can't. It just stops that flywheel that I talked about earlier. So we're looking at these underrepresented populations that could be in the workforce, but they're not. So that's enough from me. And I see Julie is on there, so I will shut up and let her talk about a really cool program with DOC.
Hello. It looks like you're talking, but we cannot hear you. It should be working.
Hey, Jennifer, can you try saying something just to make sure it's not IT thing here?
Test.
Cool. We can hear you, Jennifer. But yeah, Julie, we are not able to hear you. We are looking into it.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Ron.
while they identify the IT issues, uh, if there is someone that would like to send an article to the Southwest Wyoming Manufacturing Partnership, and no, you don't get to hit me. I'd be happy to put it in there. I've been reading a book called Think Again by Adam Grant. And one of the things that it talks about in there is the being able to process and assimilate new information that you didn't necessarily have before. And I'll point out that no way did I ever think that a third of all male employees be in that age category fall into this category. So I do see where there's a huge loss of potential employees and revenue and all of those types of things. And I'd be happy to help try and change some understanding of that.
Yeah, thank you for your comments, Ron. Or Julie, did you get Julie up yet? Or are we still working on it?
Mr. Chairman, if we're still working on that, I do have a question.
Oh, yes, Larry.
And you
Where's
may
the
not
what's-
have the answer. I believe it was maybe 2 years ago, DWS was running a program with these tablets, with the Wi-Fi in the prisons, to where they were doing virtual career fairs. And there was a screening process where they were red light, yellow light, or green light based on what your company, could tolerate as far as offenses coming into the workforce. That program kind of went away. Is that coming back?
Thank you. I believe that I've heard it sounds familiar, and our previous program manager, I believe she has talked about that,
Okay.
but it's not anything that
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. Now, personally, as we're still working through getting Julie online here, so it is a passion thing of mine as well. I think I might have mentioned in a council meeting last year when I was at the National Government Association Symposium. They kind of gave an economic workforce report for the country and kind of let the states know what to be aware of and what you should be focusing on. And it was very interesting because if we don't engage in some of these different populations that are currently either not in the workforce or it's taking them too long in, the U.S. has a severe shortage of workforce coming up in the next decade, severe. And so what they said is you need to get plans in place. There's 4 groups per se, that you should focus on building better relationships, figure out what the problems are. And one of them was the incarcerated, getting the incarcerated back in, depending on the business tolerance. The other one was youth are not coming into the workforce as early as they were. They're waiting, they're delaying. And so the youth are not just becoming 14 or 15 and jumping into work. They're waiting a lot longer than they have in the past. Retired folks as well, being able to still contribute to the workforce system, even though you're retired. And then the last one was actually tribal nations, building strong relationships with your tribal nations in your state and talking about workforce. And then the other kind of compounding issue too is the younger generation, the youth of today, they're not having kids. There's a significant, they're just not interested, whether it be it's too expensive or they're not interested. We're not seeing the population that is retiring and exiting the workforce. We're not seeing any of that coming back in. And so that's why I like this conversation. I like the conversations we're going to have, throughout the rest of this meeting, talking about building strong relationships and respect with our tribal nations and how we can support them. So I'm very curious about this topic and I fully support it too. So. Yes, Larry.
Mr. Chairman, just one more thing. We are working with Department of Corrections right now. In the fall, so here late September, early October, they're launching our plumbing apprenticeship in the Torrington prison. So it'll be a NCCER accredited program. They can get all the related instruction for as long as they have until they get out. And Department of Labor is working with us on the job training hours to get them their apprenticeship as well once they are out of incarceration. So that will launch here in the fall in Torrington.
That's cool. Very cool.
We'll see what happens. And if it's successful, there's talk about moving to Rollins as well. So
Very cool. Yeah, I believe very strongly in, in second chances, right? And the other thing too is how do we provide the best chances for a successful second chance? Like come to the barriers that you were talking about. How do we get them supported and the necessities they need to be able to do the job, like you were mentioning, transportation, phone, basic skills, that stuff. So we do have a potential large role in shaping what that looks like in Wyoming in the future. So I encourage it.
Mr.
Yes.
Chairman. Thank you. I was actually a part of that work group until about 2 months ago. And so I think back on some of the conversations that we had and the meetings that we had with some businesses. And I think that there's a large gap on the business side of understanding. And I used to work in HR in industry and understanding what the tolerance is and what that looks like for a business. And so I think that that's something that we should explore further as you work through this process and, get up to speed with everything. But I do think that that is, it's something that we don't talk about enough, especially within workforce development and within industries. And, how do we make it work for those folks that have been incarcerated, to work within our different industries across the state of Wyoming. So I think that that's an interesting concept that we don't often think about, being able to support those businesses. And that I also think it would potentially be a quick lift that, putting together that information and getting it out to our businesses and our industries. So that's something that I find interesting, and I'm be happy to help with that too.
Yeah, thank you, Lona. I actually have that on my bullet here is like the business outreach, I think is another large component, right? So a lot of businesses will hear incarcerated or they have a felon and there's like, no, I don't even want to talk to this person, right? So there is a lot of business education and outreach saying, no, we need them. And they want to come back in the workforce, right? And they want that second chance, and they know how grateful they are when they actually get that. So I agree. I think we also need to consider as a council some potential action items and some goals and timelines around that, and like how we want to kind of start pushing the needle on this further. And then obviously working with you and your team on what we can come up with and execute.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
real quick, and just to kind of piggyback on that, my question for you, because I see it is an action item on here for you all in terms of recommendations, is moving forward with that. So I guess particularly you being new in your role, do you have like a wish list there? What does that look like for you in the future?
Thank you. I, as far as building upon relationships and talking about the business partnerships, and we've tried to do some outreach and reach out and ask those questions. Are they felon friendly? Are they willing to give these individuals a chance? We're not looking for a deep commitment. We're looking for more of a partnership and just having a relationship, instead of it being like, you have to take this, hire this person. And I also would like to work with a lot of the halfway houses, because I think Gillette, Cheyenne, and Casper, employers in those areas are, they have been burned in the past, and they just don't really, maybe smoothing over those relationships and trying to get some sort of promise that they would be willing to give these individuals a chance. And if we set up something with on-the-job training and further explore other areas, I think that would be beneficial.
Awesome. Thank you. And it looks like we were able to get Julie via phone. Are you with us, Julie?
I am. Can you hear me now?
Yes. Go for it, Julie. Take over.
Yay. Okay. So my name is Julie Garza. I work for the Department of Corrections. I have been inside the prison environment for 24 years. So I've been doing this for a long time. Prison Industries is partnering with DWS. We've partnered on the grant, and we're working together in collaboration with the Involved Justice Subcommittee, which is fantastic. It's a great program. One of the benefits of being part of the Department of Corrections is being able to employ offenders to able to make product, and our product is for sale. If you want to go ahead and go to the next slide. So we have a pretty strong mission. Our mission is basically to support and implement Y-Brand Industries, providing employment to the offenders that work in our program. The exciting part is most of the guys that we get in, they don't have a lot of skills. They haven't held long-term jobs. So we're teaching those life skills. We're saying, okay, guess what? You got to show up for work. You have to go through an interview panel. You sit before a board. You You have to ask questions, you have to turn in an application. We're trying to get them ready for the workforce when they leave. So we hire inmates that are long-term and short-term. Our short-term offenders, we're trying to get them ready to leave and to go out in the workforce because, as we all know, they're going to be our neighbors. Our long-term offenders are the ones that have bought into the program and are willing to teach and grow. You can go ahead and go to the next slide if you want to. Our vision, of course, is to submit, support, and implement WDOC. We develop a workforce. I kind of talked about the staff and the offender training. Next slide, please. One of the big factors is personal accountability. When you have been out in the world where you've got felons or you end up in prison, usually there's not a lot of personal accountability there. So that's part of what we're trying to do, is to teach them how to be accountable for their actions and the effects that it has on them. Go ahead and go to the next slide. We'll just kind of go through our core values pretty quickly. Again, we're just trying to develop professional potential through guidance, collaboration, and personal growth for our offenders that come into our program. We try to push the idea that you are an employee and this is what's going to be expected of you when you're outside. Next slide. So with correctional industries, most of your states, in fact, all of your states has a correctional industries program. So we here, we fall under Title 25, Chapter 13 for Wyoming, which is very simple. You can produce product for sale. All of those funds that we produce go back into our program so that we can use that to buy raw materials and pay the inmates a wage for working for us. Next slide, please. So we have 5 facilities in Wyoming, 5 prisons in Wyoming. Only 4 of them have our correctional industries program in them. The first one we're going to talk about is WMCI. It has a garment shop, a braille shop, a janitorial supplies, business support office, engraving, embroidery, graphics, those kinds of functions. Our braille program is a transcription program. It takes written word and puts it into braille word. And so that's kind of a unique area. We partner with the American Printing House of the Blind and the Library of Congress. When the offenders go through this program, when they leave, they actually can go to work for APH, and they will help them set them up in an actual transcription program and a business of their own. So that's pretty impressive. Next slide, please. Wyoming State Penitentiary is in Rollins, and we have a wood shop there, a print shop, and a garment shop. I should mention that the Pathway Homes Grant has got us a CNC machine at the wood shop, which is fantastic, and they've also got us some sewing machines for the garment shops to be able to teach the offenders how to sew. While they may not go out in the world and start an automatic sewing program or go work for a laundry service, they actually have the skills to say, I can do and function inside an environment. Next slide. The Wyoming Women's Center, again, has a garment shop. They do data entry, and they do special products like the license plate products. We do a lot of work with retail vendors throughout the state. Go ahead and go to the next slide. The Wyoming Honor Farm is a sign shop. They have a lot of street signs. They can do housing signs. They can do banners, all kinds of fun stuff. This program got put in place about 2 years ago. They partner with WMCI for graphic design, so we have 2 shops working on the same project, and so that kind of helps expand all of the skills and keep the partnership going. Next slide. So part of what we're doing is we're developing a micro-credentialing program, and within that we have skills for each offender that goes through the program that they have to be able to articulate what their skills are. They have to be able to take tests. They have to prove their ability. So that's back to that personal accountability. Next slide. So basically, micro-credentialing involves earning certificates in specific skills or competencies through short, focused courses. The credentials provide recognition for skill tests that are immediately applicable to the workforce. This was actually brought to us through the Department of Ed and through one of our board members who's no longer with us, who said, God, if you could give me something that says these guys can hold a job, I'd hire them in a heartbeat, which is something that we're trying to develop and be able to hand out. Next slide. Basically, we're going to break down each job function. They're going to go through a reading, a demonstration, and a practice. They're going to have that on-hand ability. Next slide. They have to take a test, and as they grow in what they learn, they get like a little badge, so to speak, that kind of shows each one. At the end, they'll have certificates that say, here's all of the things that I've learned and been able to do in the different job functions that I have there. Go ahead and go to the next slide. The benefit of the program of micro-credentialing is that it enhances employability, provides flexible learning opportunities, and supports long life learning and career development. So one of the things that we really push is that you have to be a lifelong learner. You can't just say, I'm going to learn about this today and I'm going to give up. So we're really pushing some of those soft skills along with the hard skills of actually doing a job. Next slide. Our time completion is by fall of 2024, with setting up the program in the first quarter of 2025. The safety program, so we're doing something that mirrors the OSHA 3 and OSHA 10 safety program, so that stuff has already been rolling out. Currently we have Garment, which is our largest shop, completed, and the wood shops and most of the other ones are in process. So that's moving along quite nicely. Go ahead, next slide. Again, skill development, recognition and motivation, career advancement. Those are all the things that everybody as an employee, no matter where you're at, appreciate and will help to encourage learning and advancement. Next slide. Once they get through the program, then they'll get certifications that they can present in a portfolio. We'll help them put those together. They actually will be able to teach what they've learned to incoming workers. So it's a process of not only have I learned it, now I get to teach it, and they get that certification that goes with them that shows where their growth pattern is. Some of our offenders won't get to the end of it, and we know that. They just won't get that far, but we'll get them as far as we can. Next slide. So what this does for Department of Workforce Services and for hiring the inmates or the offenders once they get out of the facilities, it makes them workforce ready. It demonstrates their competencies, and it helps to support their social skills, which is really, really hard. We've had people come into our program that had no recognition of how they affected their community, and when they left, they were very much community-oriented and wanted to give back to society, which is fantastic. It really does lend to the second chance hiring. Next slide. So our goals with workforce development, which we definitely appreciate the partnership that we've had there, is to continue that, to keep that collaboration going. We like to work more closely together with our goals overlapping. We share information and resources as appropriate. Some of the things were limited because, of course, we are a correctional facility. We had more interaction with the predecessor of this program for Pathways Home Grant's predecessor, that coordinator for us, than we have with Blaine since she just started, so we're advancing on that. So next slide. Rehabilitation and skill development provides offenders with job skills and work habits. This reduces recidivism rates, of course affects the economy, and again, it helps with the community. Offenders that go through the industry's program, go ahead and go to the next slide, the recidivism rate actually decreases quite a bit. The Bureau of Justice shows that 68% of released prisoners are arrested within 3 years, and 77 are arrested within 5 years. The national average for inmate training, job training programs like this has a recidivism rate of 17% lower than others. So if we can get them involved, we can get them trained, they usually have a better chance of success once they get outside. Next slide. The Bureau of Justice also shows that individuals who secure employment post-release are less likely to reoffend, which makes why DWS working with them is so important. That reentry partnership between inside the facility and with DWS is just huge. One example was the Iowa Correction report that 63% of their participants were employed within 6 months of release. So that is fantastic. Next slide. The Federal Bureau of Prison highlights that correctional industries programs can significantly contribute to rehabilitation and successful reentry. Programs that combine job skills, training with work experience show higher success rates in reducing recidivism. And that's not just our program, that's across the nation. California Prison Industries Authority reports a 25% decrease in recidivism, and we're right in that same line percentage range with them. Next slide. Correctional industries programs help reduce the economic burden. So they say, it saves approximately $4 to $5 in future incarceration costs per offender. So that's fantastic. Next slide. This is just a listing of resources that you guys can use if you want to get more information. Moving forward, go ahead, next slide. Moving forward, we want to continue enhance our collaboration with workforce development and kind of partner with Selena, and then our timelines, our milestones and deadlines for achieving goals. Those are in place. We're hoping that we have our micro-credentialing completed by 2025, and then we have are more than willing to collaborate and to talk with potential hirees or potential employers if that's something that comes up for us. We would like to be able to utilize and partner with DWS to be able to say, okay, here are guys that have come through our program that have a higher rate of potential success. Next slide. So this is where questions and answers come in. Do you guys have any questions for me?
Council, questions? A lot, right? There's a lot to process here, for sure. I mean, it's all great data, all great stuff. I learned a lot in that presentation, to be honest, so. Or was some things that stood out to you? Oh, go ahead, Julie.
That's okay. No, I was just going to say, you guys are more than welcome to reach out to me at any time. I'll be glad to chat with you.
Yeah, I think, I definitely, speaking for myself, I definitely want to keep the conversation going in relationship. And, obviously it's a very deep topic to explore and actually kind of put some action items and some tangibles around this. But I think it's all very doable, and to your point in an earlier slide, you mentioned, I'm just like that, again, we're kind of like the Venn diagram, right? So that's kind of what Ron was speaking to, is like, we just need to identify what this Venn diagram in Wyoming looks like, who's responsible for what, and like where these co-partnerships can happen. Because a lot of times, someone's already solved a lot of stuff. And there could even be these are things that I can also take to the state level at the national government and say, how did you get around this? You have good ideas. And so that's why, I also want to commend, give the council a list of if you have specific ideas or asks or wants around this. I would be happy to read and review that and potentially distribute out to the council as well, so we can brainstorm on partnerships. So yeah, I think that this won't be the last time we'll be talking about this.
I hope not.
Other
I hope that we can
statements
talk more.
or questions from council?
Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
This is one of those really interesting, deep topics, and I found this a lot being on this council. I'm sorry, this is Danny Bureau talking. I don't know if you can see that. So we have a small business. We're not far from Rollins, so it's certainly something that we have thought about before. But the question is always, what's the easiest way as someone in private industry for me to take advantage of these kinds of programs? So ours is a restaurant. I don't know how much training and whatnot there is to get these justice involved individuals into, say, a restaurant to do cooking or whatever. What does that process look like? So if I was to go out and speak to other businesses around, there's an opportunity here, here's how you would pursue it. I don't actually know. There's so much here. I don't actually know where I would start to get that rolling. Thank you. Okay.
So we're in a small picture. First, I'm going to say, please reach out to me, and I can go in more detail. We can talk about this some more. But in an overview picture, each facility has a kitchen. They have a chow hall where these gentlemen are taught safe serve certifications. So they have to have their safe serve. They have to know how to work in a kitchen. They have to be able to pass that test to be able to stay inside a kitchen. So we have trained individuals that are already restaurant trained. maybe not so much with the actual service side as far as the waiter or waitress, because that's not something we focus into as much, but they do serve from a line. They do know how to make plates. They do know how to do all of the safe serve stuff. So we could, we could have you partnership with the warden possibly in your area to say, hey, when you have a gentleman that might be interested, can you point them our direction? So we'd work with the case managers inside the facility and the reentry case managers that work with the Department of Workforce Services to say, hey, here's a list of guys or here's a list of vendors, so to speak, restaurant owners that would love to hire some of our offenders as they leave. Let's point them in their direction. We can even do, with this new program that they've set up with Department of Workforce Services, you can even do video interviews through that tablet system. So you can actually interview before they leave.
Yeah, I would agree with Jenny. I think, long-term goal would be, this goes back to the earlier conversation around just private industry awareness. Is like, we have to make it so easy for businesses to understand, and I think that the micro-credentialing piece that you're putting together is great. I think that's what an employer would like. It's like, oh, they can do this, they can do that. But the way that they can effectively reach out to hire these folks needs to be, I think, crystal clear. Yep. Because I wouldn't know where to start either. But did I call the jail? Like, where do I go? So.
Yes,
Mr.
and
Chairman,
that's part of that second chance grant that we're working on.
Yeah, awesome. Yes, Lau.
We're also wanting to work towards more on-the-job training, such as even with youth, because we do have youth that are incarcerated and they go through a boot camp program and they don't have work experience, and then we additionally would want businesses to reach out to the workforce centers for information on incentives such as work opportunity tax credit and other information.
Cool. Sounds like we've got a lot of moving wheels still, which is great. And we'll try to help you in what ways we can. All right. Any other council discussion before we move on to our next agenda item? Well,
Mr. Chairman.
Oh, yes.
Sorry. I just want to make a comment. So there is a ministry in Gillette. They're called Second Chance, and they are absolutely amazing. I have so many customers that absolutely love hiring their guys who just got out of incarceration because they're willing to learn. They're already did a little bit of on-the-job training. And I can tell you they're probably some of the best people to put through safety because they want to be there and they're just wanting someone to give them that second chance. So I'm absolutely all for this, and I'm more than happy to help you in the Gillette area.
Thank you.
Yeah, go ahead, Lauren.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So this question is for Julie. I'm just curious as to how you are coming up with the programs that you're helping with training and micro-credentialing within your facilities. I think about the culinary programs that we have just from the conversation that just happened that we have in our community colleges. And I wonder if there might be some work that we could do to look at workforce needs across the state and look at college programs and certificates and then those micro-credentialing things and create some additional pipelines that are identified. And that would allow us to also then look at the businesses that are hiring within that area and focus those efforts on those specific folks.
Thank you. Look at all the ideas already coming out.
Yes, I love it. I didn't catch your name. I'm so sorry.
Sorry, Lauren Shainfeld.
And where do you work at?
I work for the governor's office.
Okay, Lauren. So we, on our board, on the Industries Advisory Board, we have education as part of our advisory committee. And so that's kind of how we pull in that college side, but we would definitely like to extend that conversation. So if you're willing, I would definitely like to reach out to you and see what, kind of go through it a little bit more with you. The way we develop most of our programs, is from a need. Sometimes we can partner with outside businesses, like let's say you have a manufacturing company come into town and they need 150 widgets and they have no way to produce them, and they say, can you make these widgets for us? And we look at what the cost is. We decide if it's going to be a PI program or a regular program based on the BJS requirements, and then we go from there. So there's that. You know, there's also the fact that we do a lot of work for the Department of Corrections, you know, like our print, our uniforms, all of those things. We can sell to state, nonprofit, governments, private businesses, and regular people. So we kind of can do whatever commodity or whatever manufacturing kind of thing that's presented that is something that is valuable, that is viable, that is something that will teach our inmates skills, we will definitely consider. The micro-credentialing part of this, we are developing as a team. We're doing our own research on what that looks like. We've done some work with Department of Education to say, hey, you know, Michelle Aldridge is fantastic, and she's helped us, and Mary Ann Taft, who just left our board, was at LCCC, and she is amazing too, and they're great support, and so we kind of run what we're doing through them to make sure that we're on task with the businesses, the education, the criminal justice society. So, yeah, I would love to reach out and have more conversations with you.
Awesome. Great. Christina, you had something to add?
Individuals that leave incarceration, they're a priority population, as Salau said. But with WIOA, we have things like OJTs, where we pay 50% of the wages. So thank you for clarifying 50%. We also have transitional jobs. So transitional jobs is like a work experience where we'll pay 100% of their wages for up to 400 hours. And so it's these types of things that if we can utilize your networking and your community connections to share this, you know, they could be enrolled in WIOA, and then, you know, we're helping to supplement that and then be a lifelong, you know, what am I looking for? Employer for you. So just really want to make sure that that everyone here knows all of those benefits, and that's why we thought it was important to kind of start these conversations as well. Thank you.
Great stuff. So yeah, thank you again, Salau and Ron and Julia, for putting this together. It's very thought-provoking and a great conversation started, and it's not going to stop. So thank you, Salau. All right, moving on to agenda item number 11. We are going to talk about Senior Community Service Employment Program, and that's going to be presented by Nikki. Oh, and just turn on your microphone. There we go.
Green is on. Okay. Thank you for giving me the time to just do a real quick little presentation for you guys today. Okay, just making sure you have my slides. So Senior Community Service Employment Program, we refer to it as CSEP, is a grant that Department of Workforce Services receives from the Department of Labor, but it's authorized through the Older Americans Act. It's kind of an interesting little grant because we have been receiving this for, I mean, I'm not sure exactly how long, but a long time. And it has moved between different divisions within DWS and has also been at one time outside of our agency, but still under the state umbrella. We received this grant as the state grantee for Wyoming. However, there's also a national grantee in Wyoming, which is operated through a sub-grantee, which is AARP right now. Up until June 30th of this current year, we were using a sub-recipient, and we have done that for a number of years, which is the main reason that I wanted to bring this topic to you guys today, is because as of July 1st of this year, DWS are running this program in-house now. And I think I'm going to piggyback on what Ivy said earlier about the one-stop system being, I mean, who is better to run the programs that we have in the state? The one-stops obviously have the resources and do a great job of operating the programs. So unfortunately, it does put an additional program into the one-stops that they have to learn and be able to run. But It's significantly smaller than WIOA. So that's, that's good. Can I have the next slide, please? So what is CSEP? It is an employment and training, potentially training program for individuals who are 55 and older, unemployed, and low income. Our income level is fairly similar to WIOA. The other portion of that is not considered an eligibility criteria, but it is in our policy, is barriers to employment. And I think it's great that Salau just went before me talking about people with these very specific barriers that in this program, it may be former incarceration, it may be low income. It could just be that they have done a 30 or 40-year career in an area that they can no longer work in. So there's so many additional barriers to people in this age group who are low income. Sometimes it's hard to find something when you're aging to step into, to take the place of something you can maybe physically no longer do. Or maybe you just did one job for most of your life and then suddenly faced a layoff. And it's really hard to find something to fill that void when you're also facing potential age discrimination, maybe some physical disabilities. And also, I mean, technology now is so hard for people who didn't maybe grow up with it the same as younger generations. It's just a harder thing to learn and get to grips with. But it's also a fairly required skill for most employers now. So I don't really put barriers up there because it's kind of a given. If you're 55 and older and low income, unemployed, I mean, you obviously are facing barriers. One of the main ones being the age discrimination in the workforce. We do have priority of service, which is very similar to the WIOA. Veterans and spouses, qualified veterans and spouses over 65, a disability which can be documented or just self-attested, low literacy skills, limited English proficiency, residing in a rural area, which almost everybody in our area does, because I think all of Wyoming other than Laramie and Natrona County are rural. Homeless or risk of homelessness, low employment prospects, and failed to find employment after WIOA Title I. And WIOA Title I is obviously we are a required partner of CSEP. So I wanted to, when we decided to bring this grant in-house and start running it ourselves, it just seemed like a no-brainer to me that we have the resources available to run this in tandem with all of the other programs that we already run. Next slide, please. So what the program does, once we decide that you're eligible and you're in the program, what we do is we place a participant into a community service assignment. It's generally supposed to be part-time, but with the funding we have available right now, we tend to allow up to about 30 hours per week. Federal minimum wage is what we pay, and that is fixed. There's no wiggle room on that. Everybody gets paid the same regardless of job duties. They're placed at a nonprofit or a public organization. They're the only types of organizations that we are able to utilize for the program. So generally any kind of government agency or nonprofit would be great. Individuals do have a limit of 48 months, and that is across the nation. If you're in Colorado, signed up for the program for 3 years, and then you move to Wyoming, you can still only do a further 1 year in the program. Next slide, please. So the benefits to participants is obviously gaining workplace skills and with the potential of leading to unsubsidized employment. That's our goal for everybody in the program, is that they will eventually, and hopefully prior to their 4 years, be released from the program to a job that is not subsidized. However, for some participants, that's harder than others. So the other benefits to them are obviously just networking, building relationships with employers. It gives them access to employers that they maybe wouldn't have otherwise. Socialization, which is a big one that I see. A lot of seniors that come to the program say that they just kind of need the routine because maybe they retired and then decided it just wasn't for them because they need to still be out in the community and feel like they need to be a part of something. Referrals to other organizations and co-enrollment with other workforce programs. Now, this is fairly new because Goodwill were our sub-grantee up until the end of June. And even though Goodwill did make referrals as much as they could, they just don't have the same resources that the one-stops do, where we can make more, maybe more meaningful resources, referrals to other departments within our agency, you know, for example, vocational rehabilitation. And then obviously there is extra income. The $7.25 per hour is not ever going to really entice people to the program. I don't think it's ever the main reason, but at least they do get paid to participate. Next slide. And then of course the benefit to the employers. They get temporary help that they do not have to meet the cost of that person's hourly rate of pay. That is 100% wages and fringe benefits are paid by the grant. So they do get temporary help for, which again, for nonprofits, it's a great resource because there's some positions they just can't fill due to funding restrictions. Seniors can bring a lot of previous experience. You know, some of these people have had careers or have had many, many years in the workforce and have just had to switch gears and do something different. So they're still bringing that experience in with them. And even better, the third one is what I like the most, is they can hire participants directly from the program. So when somebody is placed at a community service assignment and they learn about the job, at the end of the 4 years, if they're still comfortable and happy with what they're doing and they aren't ready to retire and they do want to continue working at their host agency, they can be hired directly from the program by their host agency at any time. And they don't have to wait for their 4 years to be up. That's something that is open to them at any time. You just exit them and they, you know, would become an employee. Next slide, please. So Department of Workforce Services, like I say, we just took over operating this program July 1st. We only operate in 5 counties in Wyoming: Natrona, Converse, Hot Springs, Fremont, and Washakie. Fremont is actually our biggest county. Right now we have 18 positions in Fremont County, which is fairly significant, and we're significantly under-enrolled in Fremont County. Natrona is the only county that we ever seem to be fully or close to fully enrolled. And I think it's just still different community setups, people maybe just being underserved and not as many resources there for them. But we can at any point have up to 43 people enrolled in the program spread out through those 5 counties. And of course, anybody outside of those areas, we work very closely with AARP. The company they come under are called New Solutions. But AARP are really great to work with. And ever since we've been operating together since July 1st, I think we've already collaborated really well to make sure, you know, sometimes participants leave the program because they don't feel like they're being served, or, you know, they just decided that they don't want to be in the program and they kind of switch between us and AARP in Natrona County, as it's the only county that we both operate positions. So we've tried to work together better to tackle that and make sure that people are, you know, kind of following the rules of the program, doing what they're supposed to be doing. So yeah, I think this was just a great one to follow on from Slau's presentation, that the population that this program is serving are also very difficult to place in employment, or can be, just because of either their individual situation or employers' maybe mindsets on aging population. And with this program starting at 55 and most people can't, you know, retire for a significant period after that, we've got a pretty big void to fill there if they can only do 4 years. So allowing us to help them out for 4 years to find something to get them through to retirement, I think is just a great opportunity. That's all I've got. You have any questions?
Yeah, questions or discussion from council? Oh, Mayor, yes.
Talk about this just a little bit of Mayor Shoshone, and we've recently looked at utilizing this because we have quite a bit of our citizens are over 55. And one roadblock we had, I thought this is a great program because it would helping out a need for like our senior center or for town hall. Great thing, but we were not allowed to add, like match the 750. And if we could have done that, we could have afforded that and sort of a 50-50 deal. We was told we couldn't do that. And I don't know, we had some seniors though that just said they wouldn't work for $7.50 an hour. So I might have, that's more than I make now as mayor. But I can't work for the city and be mayor both, so I don't know. Here I am, but I don't know if that's probably regulated by the feds.
Yeah, and it's obviously it's the first raised eyebrow I get talking about this program is $7.25 an hour. Who wants to work for that? But unfortunately, it's that's what we kind of that's the it. And it's not just that that's what the DOL mandates. There is such a thing as prevailing wage that we could actually write into our grant where we request to pay prevailing wage. So say somebody that's a janitor right now that's getting $7.25 through the program, potentially we could boost them up to, I mean, I'm not sure what the number would be, but like $8.93 per hour would be the prevailing wage for a janitor in Wyoming. So they get paid more. But the downside of that is we get 3/4 of the way through our grant year and we can't pay 30 hours per week because we've increased everybody's hourly rate of pay. So from me on the program side, we're going to run out of money a lot faster. And AARP actually did that, I think about this time last year. So we actually had a lot of people jump from when Goodwill were running it on behalf of DWS. We had a lot of people jump to AARP because they're like, well, they're paying more, so why would we stay? And they did it for 6 to 8 weeks and they got their hours cut in half because they couldn't afford to continue, which unfortunately was just a consequence of doing that. So it kind of evens out. We can't work all the hours and get paid more. So really, because when I first took this program on, I thought, why are we not doing prevailing wage? But then you just look and it brings about other challenges. The other thing to keep in mind is CSEP income is exempt from a lot of programs. So SNAP benefits and subsidized housing, they don't consider CSEP income as true income. So there's a lot of people in this program that could potentially make or get paid more money than what they would if they got $10 per hour because they're still able to keep their housing and their SNAP benefits. Whereas if they got paid a higher rate of pay, they may potentially lose those benefits, which I know it's still $7.25 an hour, but there are some advantages to the program.
And if someone just needed a little extra supplement to their Social Security, that's a pretty good boost. Some of them don't make that much with their Social Security.
Well, and that's it too. And I'm not going to pretend I'm a Social Security expert and I will probably get the ages wrong, but there's, in the couple of months that I've been dealing more directly with participants, I've seen a lot of people that maybe due to a layoff or because they can't do their job anymore, they ended up stopping work at 62 or 63 instead of making it to 67 and a half, I want to say, before they can receive their full retirement. And if you then start receiving Social Security retirement, you can only make a certain amount of money until you're full retirement age. I hope I said that right. If not, something kind of like that. So they can supplement their Social Security retirement until they meet full retirement age, because maybe they can, you know, I don't know. It's not ideal, 725, but it's something. And if they can learn new things along the way, then that's cool.
Yeah, I think it's a good program. We haven't figured out how to get it to work in Shoshone yet, but we've tried to.
Yeah, well, and we can definitely sit down and talk about at least getting you guys set up and look at doing that, so that when you're ready to, you know, if you convince anybody to take it on, we can definitely do that.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
I just wanted to add real quick, when we talked about bringing this program in-house originally, a lot of the goal was to improve the outcomes from the program. We've seen over the years that people stick around for those 48 months. They're no longer eligible for the program, and then they just kind of go to retirement. We're really hoping as we settle in and start to get a handle on running this through the workforce centers, that we're able to improve those outcomes and transition people from the program into employment, utilizing the skills that they're gaining. So, thank you.
Great. Another great discussion. Thank you. Any other discussion or comments from council?
Just
Larry?
brainstorming with what we're doing with next gen partnerships across the state who maybe don't have the funding to have an admin and take care of those types of things. I mean, if we establish a next gen as a nonprofit, we can have an admin up to 30 hours
Yeah,
a
I
week
was gonna
for
say that
4
is
years.
a great idea of a program cross collaboration, right? Because a lot of the next gen partnerships, that's exactly what they're asking for.
Absolutely. And then they're getting involved with industry through those next gens that would hire them beyond. I don't know.
I love it. I absolutely love it. I hope there's something there. All right. Well, thank you so very much for that presentation. Also,
you.
another topic I'm sure we'll continue now that it's part of our suite of services that we'll kind of continue to get updates on. So thank you very much. All right. And our last agenda item for today, agenda item number 12, is we're going to get a Wind River Job Corps presented by Matthew Davis. So go for it, Matthew.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I know we got a deck coming up, I think. There we go. All right. So I'm Matt Davis. I mentioned I'm kind of new to the area. I've been here 5 months, but I'm not new to Job Corps. Figured this would be a chance to introduce myself. Following college, I did a 2-year teaching commitment in South Central Los Angeles. And when I completed that commitment, it was toward the end of 2008, and the Great Recession was in full swing. And so I was unemployed for a good 6 months. And I eventually found and settled on a very, very entry-level job with Job Corps. And I remember thinking when I took the job, I never want anybody to feel the way I did those 6 months, not being able to get a job, having interviews and nothing working out. And that kind of flowed in perfectly with the Job Corps model. So even though I started at this entry-level job, I got a chance to do things like counseling and job placement, working in the academics and the training areas. And of course, then center director. And that's, I've had the privilege to go kind of around the country working with Job Corps and working on policy with Department of Labor. And so it's been a great journey, and I'm really, really glad to be here. And so I want to tell you a little bit about Job Corps. I think one of the cool things is, even though a lot of folks don't know about Job Corps, it's one of the best kept secrets, I think. I know we have at least 2 people in this room who'd worked in Job Corps at some point during their careers. And so it definitely touches a lot of different people. So let me tell you a little bit about Job Corps. Actually, on the last slide, one of the things I tell students when they come into the program is it's pronounced Job Corps, like or the Marine Corps, Army Corps, Apple Corps. And so it's not corpse. We make sure they know we're not housing corpses. So I make sure I always put that on my presentation. So thank you for going back. So the mission statement is, we are the nation's largest residential employment and training program that helps students earn a career, a high school diploma or equivalency. And then the biggest thing is find a good career. That's the mission. We are for eligible young people 16 to 24 years old who qualify as low income. Sometimes that means their parents aren't claiming them. But they're low income and have all around skills needed to succeed in a career in life. Those are the key qualifying elements. Disqualifying element would be that someone had a felony on their record. And of course, the program cannot be mandated by a court. So to me, the real thing that every student has in common is that whatever they were doing before they got to Job Corps didn't work out. So I heard the term, underemployed, unemployed, homeless, maybe a high school dropout. I had a student in Southern California who couldn't make it in the family business. They were gang members and he was just too good. So his mom said, you can't stick with the family business. You need to enroll in Job Corps. Great kid. So those are the main things that our students have in common. In some places around the country, I think the program has gotten a certain reputation, but it's not the case. We're not court mandated. We have our own incidents, just like high schools, but a lower frequency rate of fights and all the normal stuff that goes on in high schools. Next slide. So I want to go over the history a little bit. The program started during LBJ under the War on Poverty. So 1964, which means this year we celebrated our 60th anniversary. And the program serves nationally 33,000 students per year. It's a pretty big number. There are currently 123 centers around the country, which includes at least one in every state. And then Puerto Rico has 2 centers. Hawaii has 2 centers too. Pretty nice. I think there's maybe one more. Okay. So that's the program as a whole. We're the only Job Corps in the state of Wyoming, and I'll get to that in a minute. So the structure of the program is we fall under the Department of Labor. Within Department of Labor, there is the Employment and Training Administration. There are 27 different training programs that DOL funds. Job Corps has the largest budget by far, just close to $2 billion a year to operate those 123 centers. That also means we get a lot of scrutiny from Congress, which is okay. Of course, we're authorized through WIOA. Within ETA, Employment and Training Administration, we have the Job Corps program housed in the national office in Department of Labor, 200 Constitution Avenue in Washington, D.C. I will say before I get to the next point, we did have a chance to go back and visit DOL last month, and we took a stellar student from our center. His name is Ryan Mosser. He got to go back to DC for the first time, and it's a pretty amazing trip for him, and got to meet all sorts of DOL heads, and he's a local kid. And so he made it into a bunch of our local publications, and of course, he was the talk of the town. So it was a great experience. Now, with Job Corps, the majority of the centers around the country are operated by private companies. And so the operator of the Wind River Job Corps Center since September 1st of last year is a company called Equus Workforce Solutions. They're also the largest operator of one-stops in the country, and they have a few Job Corps centers now as well. All right, thank you. So there's 3 kind of main areas that Job Corps focuses on. First is recruiting students. Second is training them on center. And then third is placing them when it's time to leave. And even once they leave, they get placement services. Now, per WIOA, all the types of operations that Job Corps has are required to have a performance outcome report card. So not only do we see how we're doing on key metrics, but we can compare ourselves between other centers around the country. All right. Now, Wind River Job Corps, our center, opened its doors in 2015. It is the newest center in the country, and it was specifically built to be a Job Corps center. So the majority of Job Corps centers are operating in old military bases, old high schools. I went to one that was in an old hospital. It was pretty freaky. And so we just have a beautiful campus. I think there's a newer campus that will be opening soon, but of the probably 40 centers I've gotten to go to, it's by far the most beautiful center. And I think a lot of people would agree if you've been there. I'm pleased to report that this data was from when I first got here back in April, and it has now changed. So 5 months ago, the majority of our students were from Texas, Colorado, and then coming up at the end was Wyoming and Montana. That has changed. We still have a lot of students from Colorado, mainly because of the Denver area. But now we have over 30% of our students from Wyoming, which is the direction we want to go. And then Texas, and then we've got a handful of other states, Montana, Oregon. And that's one area that we really want to work on. And in a little bit, I'll say, mention how maybe y'all can help with getting us more local students. Next slide, please. So again, the purpose of the program is technical training that leads to related employment. We offer 9 training options, and then again, the opportunity to complete a high school or high school equivalency. And I'm just going to rattle these off. Building construction technology, it's kind of like facility maintenance, jack of all trades, carpentry, electrical, heavy equipment mechanic, heavy equipment operator, heavy truck driving, medical. We're the only Job Corps in the country to offer a petro trade, and then we have welding. And I know, I believe it's tomorrow, but all these trade offerings are determined on projected labor market information in our area. So even though we get students from other areas, it's because they might have an interest in heavy equipment operator or petro and they want to go home to Houston. But all of these are based on labor market info. And if any of that shifts, then we can request new trade offerings on campus. All right, so these are some of the metrics that we look at based on WIOA, and all the other training programs offered by ETA have to look at these same rates. So 90-day retention, 180-day retention, high school diploma attainment, trade completion, industry recognized credential. If you needed a high school, did you also finish the trade? They look at basic reading and basic math rates. And then the other thing, and I've got Jerry here with me, we do something called work-based learning where our students go out in the community and while they're still training on center, they spend time working with an employer or the city of Riverton or Lander, doing projects to build their skills before it's time to complete the program and exit. And Jerry oversees our work-based learning program. So before I get to the questions, I just want to hit on a couple of ways that we could always use your support. The first would be just with the idea of those qualifications to get into the program and knowing who comes to our program. It's kids who, whatever they were doing before, they didn't make it and they needed a different option. And also students who don't have a felony. That's another, or court mandated participation in the program. It's voluntary. The other thing you can do is if you know of young people, whether they're not going to make it in high school or they finished high school and they don't want to go to community college yet or university, but they want to sharpen some hands-on skills, refer them to us. Those are great students, and often Job Corps is a springboard into CWC. Another initiative we're looking at right now is co-enrollments. And so we've just signed an MOU with Riverton, with Frontier Academy, which is like an adults or alternative school, land are unified. And so looking at ways students can get creative about finishing maybe their traditional high school experience, but also coming to work on technical training with us. So if there are unique partnerships you can think of that might benefit programs you know of or your programs, we're always open to looking at that. Of course, building our Wyoming population of youth. And lastly, for the employers in the room or the people who are connected to employers, connecting Jerry and the center with you. We'd love to send students to different work sites to support the efforts. Some of those sites are great. They're paid work-based sites, employer pays. Others aren't. And we chalk that up to hands-on experience that they can put on their resume. I think that's it for me. Any questions?
Questions or council discussion? Director Gagan?
What medical programs do you offer?
So right now we are partnering with CWC, Central Wyoming College, and we're looking to bolster that to do dual enrollments. However, right now we're strictly partnering with their medical offerings. And so could be phlebotomy, EKG, medical assisting, nursing. So basically whatever they have in terms of their offerings, we can enroll a student in Job Corps. They can live in our dorms, get the 3 meals a day. They get a small biweekly stipend when they live on campus, and then they can go down the street to CWC. And so the hope is, based on this dual enrollment we're looking at, we'll be able to bolster some of their offerings and then bolster our enrollment. We have the ability to enroll up to 300 students at any given time. And right now we're at about 60% of that. And it's been difficult to get over that hump. But I think part of what would create stability with our enrollment number is that partnership with the college, because they have a stable place to live with us. They get to go, they get to go to college every day and experience that life on the college campus, and a little more autonomy being off center. And so I think I answered your question about the medical.
Great. Yes.
So I'm intrigued to kind of hear in terms of recruitment and then placement. So you guys are obviously bringing folks out of state into state to be learning these things. Is the goal generally to be placing them in Wyoming businesses, or is it sometimes a hybrid of what that looks like?
Hybrid. So if someone's coming in from out of state, it's because they want one of the trades that we offer and that's in demand in our state. So a lot of the time, maybe I'll say a Houston student is the best example, will come wanting a job in training in petroleum. Then they'll do a work-based assignment out in the field while they're still here, and they make a lot of money. And then they realize they like the state and they want to stay. But my goal has, like I said, to boost Wyoming enrollment. And then, of course, it would be a more natural fit for them to stay when they finish. Our hope is that through those work-based learning assignments, students would get a job offer and they would want to stay with that employer because it was such a good experience. And that happens pretty often. Yeah, that's part of it. But even if a student does leave and go back to Denver or Houston or wherever, they still receive placement services for over a year from us. So we don't just cut them off and let them go. We keep giving them services, sending them job leads. And then of course, as part of WIOA, we have to report our placement outcomes. And that's part of that placement report card. Great question.
Any other questions or council discussion for Matthew? Awesome. Great presentation. And yeah, once again, congratulations on your new position and also on the council. So we're in good hands, it sounds like. Yay. All right. Well, that kind of gets us close to the official end of day one. So rewinding throughout the day, a lot of great conversation. Hopefully that you're able to take some of these offline and chat about them tonight. So just a couple of housekeeping things before I kind of talk about what the agenda is for the rest of the day, and then getting ready to go into tomorrow. So there is homework for all council. You are to read these tonight in your hotel rooms, memorize them because there will be a quiz tomorrow. No, just kidding. Yeah, I'm gonna be chair for like one time. You're like, get this guy out of here. But these are actually really great. I love this. If you're a data person, the annual report is there. So much love and labor goes into this report, and there's fascinating things in here. So truly take a look at that. And then also, as a council, if you're not that familiar with the Wyoming Innovation Partnership that Lauren's about with the governor's office, this is a great introduction to the WIP program, what they're working on. A lot of co-collaboration also needs to happen there. So definitely these are some good reads. And then let's see. So what's going to happen next is we actually have a very special little offsite for all of you today. I'm not sure if anyone has ever gone on the Path of Honor in the Wind River Reservation. It's a veterans memorial. So it's a pretty powerful, respectful place. And we actually do have a guided tour. His name is Lyle. Lyle's going to give us a guided tour of the Path of Honor here. It's not that far away. And so we're going to be doing that. And then shortly after, and this also just kind of touches on, one of the reasons why we're here in Fort Washakie, and also considering some of the agenda topics we're going to have tomorrow is meeting with the tribal leaders. And we're here really to learn and to listen. That's all we're here to do, right? We're here to learn what's going on and to listen to their feedback, to really, truly extend a first handshake, right? That we're here, we want to understand what they're going through. But that's what really this Path of Honor is, as well as into tomorrow, as we build stronger tribal relationships. And then for those of you that are staying, you will after the Path of Honor walk, we're at the Holiday Inn Express over in Lander. And then I encourage anyone in this room, if you would like to join us for dinner this evening, we're going to be at Cowfish on the Main Street, starting at 6:30. And so if you, I always enjoy those dinners. I think it's great. You get to know each other a little bit more personally, to get to continue some of the great conversations we've had. So hope you will join us then. And then tomorrow morning, so I'll be moving us into recess here shortly, but we're going to reconvene here tomorrow morning at 8:30 to get us started. And we've got another jam-packed day in the morning, and then get you all safely back on the road if this is not your home. And yeah, so I'm going to go ahead and call. Oh, and because we're going to start the walk at 4:35, Lyle's going to be here for 4:35. So you've got about 15-minute break, so you can kind of get all of your stuff together, bathroom break, stretch outside. But then all of us just need who is going to be going on the honor walk, Path of Honor walk. We're just going to meet out in the lobby at 4:35, and Lyle will take us out there and give us a guided tour. So, all right, I am calling this council meeting to recess, and we will pick up where we left off tomorrow at 8:30 in the morning. Hope to see some of you tonight. Thanks.